It's the Guild Wars 2 Guild Chat show, and they're going to be talking about the elite specializations, the second wind / run through of all the things. Revenant Warrior, Elementalist. Excited? Welcome to the chat. If you are in the chat and you're thinking, oh good lord, who are these people? We're awesome. There's Boots, there's Rook, there's Kroof. The regulars have returned for another week.
Reunited, and it feels so good.
It does. Yeah. It does indeed.
Back and better than ever.
Also another song.
Another song, yeah. Let's take this over to...
I really love that song quote. That's one of my favorites.
Feels so good.
Chat, hopefully you guys are really excited for today. I know we all are.
Oh my gosh. I am honestly, I'm so pumped about these three. I wasn't even expecting to be that excited, but now after having seen them, I'm over here just like, ooh, yeah. Especially with the like fun elemental animals. I am all about that life.
Oh yeah.
It's very true. The Elementalist is probably one of the ones I'm actually the most excited about, because Weaver was kind of exciting at the time, and then I played it and I was like, oh, there's some cool animations, but there's a lot going on. So I'm wondering, and I'm wondering about our gyro talk recently as well from last week.
Yeah. What's interesting is with the Elementalist, they're initiating a new type of combo field and finisher, where if you have a ranger with the Elementalist, they can tame the little like the Phoenix and the South Spray Dragon.
It's a new
cross-progression mechanic. Yeah.
That would be amazing, because I did
like,
have a moment where I was like, wait, if they're giving them these animals, then what is Ranger getting?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, okay, we got 10 seconds left.
Okay,
time to go quiet.
We will be a little bit more quiet, everyone in the chat, while this is going on, but we'll try and speak when we're able.
Speak for yourself.
Other than the comments.
Look around us.
Or new trailer?
Your children would be trapped in the past, if not for me. Their worlds are carved from the jade that I gave purpose. I promised them a future. A century of progress cannot end this way. I'll find a way to save us all.
Different voiceover.
Different voiceover, yeah.
Starting from the middle. Oh no, they just did.
I recorded tons of different voiceover by the sounds of things.
It's so pretty. I never get sick of seeing that. I just love it.
I get the goosebumps on that.
Hi Tyria, welcome to Guild Chat and happy Friday. Thank you all for joining us. I'm your host Ruby, and we have been having so much fun this week seeing all of your reactions and how you're enjoying seeing the new elite specializations that we revealed. We are looking forward to you trying them in the beta event next week. We're going to give you a little head start today with an overview of all three of them, the Revenant, the Elementalist, and the Warrior Elite Specializations. We're going to go over the skills, the gameplay, and the general how each one works, and then Cal's going to go back and get a little bit deeper into the traits and gameplay theory for those of you who really deep dive into how this is played and want to make sure you are super efficient. So let's go ahead and get started with our two developer guests. First, Indigo, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah,
always.
Hi, I'm Indigo. I'm a writer, narrative designer on Go.
I want to press all the buttons.
I'm primarily working with the open world team. I'm a content owner for one of the narrative maps, which we'll talk about at a later time, and the Golden Path and the elite specializations, which is why I'm here today.
Yeah, and Cal, thank you.
Hi, happy to be here again. I'm Cal, game designer on Guild Wars 2. I do a lot of work on competitive game modes.
his water bottle.
Again.
A little bit of balance for those game modes. For Ender Dragons, we did a lot of work on elite specializations. So once again, I am here to kind of demo those and show those off to all of the players who are looking forward to seeing what's actually going to be in the beta next week.
Awesome. All right, well, let's do this. Let's get started with the Vindicator.
Beautiful trailer. Feel free to talk over this if you would like to. It was very good.
The Kurziks and Luxons were bitter enemies.
So
I love the spirits they chose on this.
Yes.
The two of them. I think that's such a cool idea. I love seeing people as well kind of theorycraft. I think Lara was talking about like the red and the blue and like, you know, trying to read into the image ahead of time, and it was right. Totally proved to be right.
Well, quick poll. Do you think they're going to put 2 legends in with this? Or you can put them one.
Didn't they say they are putting 2?
They're putting 2.
They
yeah,
are
they just said
100%
2.
putting 2, did they? Did they say that?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean,
They
they
one
referenced
legend.
Yeah,
They
they
talked
referenced
about it.
both of them, and they said
That's
that
true.
you use abilities that are like inspired
Bloody
by
hope
both
we
of
use
them.
the abilities. Just floating around. It could be. Interesting.
All right. I am excited to hear about this one, especially the conflict between who you're channeling. So let's start with Indigo and tell me about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Vindicator is really near and dear to my heart, which I'll probably say for a lot of the specs because they're all so much fun to work on. But
You said it was the Elementalist.
the Elementalist is near and dear to my
I heard
heart.
that line in Beta 1 as well.
Betrayal.
Well, I'm a Mesmer main, so that was near and dear to my heart. Too. Everything.
Fine. Anyway.
The Vindicator was a lot of fun to rate specifically because for the first time, the Revenant not only channels one spirit but
children are my
2.
favorite.
And our Guild Wars 1 players are probably familiar with
As you just said, channels 2.
Archimorous and St. Victor Zuhelzer
Awesome.
as heroes from Canthan's past. That defeated the villain Shiro Togachi, which is another name that you might be familiar with because he is also another Revenant legend. Now, St. Victor and Archimorous were from opposing factions, the Luxons and the Kurziks, and we won't get too far into what's going on in modern Cantha today. And I mean, we all know that the Kurziks are the best anyway.
Absolutely. No question.
That's fine. There's no argument there. We're all a little biased in this room. But
It's just facts.
what's really fun about this class is that the themes of those two opposing cultures really comes into play in the gameplay itself in these specs too. St. Victor, who is from the Kurziks, his gameplay is a lot more defensive and cleansing, while Archimorous is a lot more offensive and brutal in his gameplay. And with the help of your new greatsword, or your ability to use a greatsword rather, there's a really fun balancing act and dance between jumping between these skills and really like learning kind of this interweaving of how they work together. And I think players are going to be really excited to hear from Cal how this functions.
I have a super important question first. It's a little
Yeah. From Guild Wars 1 factions. I won't go too much into that because who knows what's going on, but basically the TLDR is he brought this little plague called the Affliction into Cantha. He stirred up a little bit of trouble.
It was gross.
He was a little gross. But now he's stuck in the mist, he's dead, he's long gone. And we might actually get to hear some spirit bickering.
Yes.
Because I mean now
I was
he's
gonna
kind of
ask if
stuck
they
in
would
this realm of
like
the undead
sass
with
each other and
the
throw
two guys that
shade.
helped kill him a while ago. So I will say that players will also be really excited to hear that you're going to be able to hear some new commentary on the state of Cantha now. And that was probably one of the best things to write for this expansion that I did.
Yay.
So get ready for some my spiritual house husbands. As I
Yes. I love that.
Wait,
my
are we live right
question,
now?
I like the idea of the three of them being bickering
we're
husbands in
live.
the afterlife.
I
Canon.
love that my question was Shiro, and I didn't have to, like, you were there with me. Thank you. All right, so Cal, let's go over these skills of the Vindicator.
All right, let's get into the skills. So, as Indigo said,
Zoom in.
Legendary Alliance stance, which is the name of the Revenant legend.
Looks like you
here.
have,
So,
like,
dwarf and demon in the past.
one
This is
on
the
one side,
Alliance,
one on the other.
Archimorous and Saint Victor.
Uh,
Also, quick shout out to everyone in the chat who voted for Kurziks being the best because it's not even close. I can't even imagine. Can't even imagine the alternative. But basically, the idea of this spec is that you have kind of this dual-sided alliance stance. And I mean, basically the entirety of the brainstorming meeting is, it's better than one legend, two legends. And all right, thought about it, did some math, called in some professional mathematicians, and they did confirm that 2 is in fact greater than 1.
Yes.
And so we decided to go with the double legend alliance stance. So basically how this works is we're going to see, right now I'm kind of in the Archimorous Luxon side of things. And once I fire off, we'll get into these skills in a second, but notice how I use the heal skill in Archimorous, now it flips over to the Kurzik side of that, goes on cooldown. And so this is going to create kind of like an interesting dynamic in gameplay and how you decide to either go on the aggressive or go on the offensive or kind of mitigate damage and support your teammates, because we're going to see a lot of offense on Archimorous, a lot of defense and support on St. Victor. So let's just get into the skills real quick. I'm going to turn off cooldowns because that makes this demo a lot more exciting.
wanna
But we're
know
going to
what
see
the
some common
cooldowns are, though.
themes between the two skills, some mechanical themes between the two skills that share the same slot. And turns out for the heal skill, they both heal you. Makes sense. That's not super surprising. Starting off with Selfish Spirit, which is the Archimedes side here. This is going to be, it's going to be like just a self-heal. It's also going to hit nearby enemies. So another common theme we're going to see both here on Archimedes and as well in the Greatsword kit is that the Vindicator really wants to be in these larger fights. So we see in the past stuff like Shiro and Sword Main Hand are more about isolating a single target and maximizing kind of that assassin-y gameplay and just focusing down a single key target. Whereas we're going to see
I don't know,
Archimedes, we're going to see
murder
the Greatsword just more
emperors
natural,
or whatever you're going to be
large AoE cleaving
doing.
attacks. And so there with the Archimedes heal, we saw that hitting multiple enemies gives me might stacks per enemy struck, also applies vulnerability, gives me a little bit extra healing. So again, get into range with all those targets, hit as many as you can, and get the maximum value of that skill. Moving over to the other side of that is going to be Selfless Spirit. So a little fun naming conventions there.
Oh, so you don't even heal yourself?
And so Selfless
No.
Spirit, nothing too crazy going on. It's just going to be that AoE heal. Going to heal yourself if I do die here. And I forgot to note that myself, but that's fine.
I love that those flip. That's so
that real
fun.
quick.
Yeah.
And flip back over here. But so we're going to heal myself, heal my allies, and that's going to, I mean, nothing too crazy here. AoE support skill. Moving into the next slot, we're going to see Nomads Advance. So the common theme of this slot is they're going to be mobility. Archimedes Nomads Advance is going to go in, pretty good damage on the skill, give some might per target struck again, hit as many targets as you can, get maximum value out of that skill. Then that's going to flip over into Battle Dance, which is going to be kind of the more disengage, evasion half of this, which is also going to give resistance and regeneration to yourself and nearby allies. So again, more supporty, and just that backwards mobility as opposed to the engage mobility of Nomads Advance. Next up, we're going to see Scavenger Burst. So this is going to be, the common theme here is going to have some endurance gain. That'll play in really well with the profession mechanic, which I'll talk about right after we get through the alliance skills. Some of you may have noticed there's no divider pip here on the endurance bar. That is, we kind of talked about that a little bit in the preview video and some of the text that we've kind of shown to the world already, where Vindicator does only have access to a single dodge, and that's going to consume all of your endurance, and no recharge is going to give me some energy back, but that's not going to happen for real players. So giving some extra endurance and gain throughout the kit here, we're going to see some of that in the traits as well. That's really going to enable kind of that singular dodge to not fall off too hard in areas where you want multiple dodges. So Scavenger Burst also going to give you quickness per target struck, in addition to just being a damaging ability. So hit a bunch of targets, get a lot of quickness.
I love that. I love the jump. That's so cool.
Get some endurance back. And that's going to flip over onto the Luxon side with Tree Song, or Kurzak side rather, Tree Song. I'm going to walk out now. I can't be here anymore.
Okay, but do this first.
We'll get through this real quick.
Important to note here that even the devs are getting confused with their own abilities on this class and this new elite specialization. I imagine how this feels a little tiny bit confusing right now.
Well, not like a little bit confusing. So
you can talk, it's fine.
I was gonna say, like here you have damaging abilities for all your red skills, and healing abilities mostly for your allies, for your blue skills. Like it's very ally focused. So, but if you want to like build as a healer, you're not going to have all your heal skills available all the time. And if you want to build as a damager, you're not going to have all your damage skills available all the time. It's interesting. I don't know if it's going to be fun or not fun.
Yeah, I'm really curious about it, honestly, because it seems like, depending on the skill lines, you could maybe like buff one so much that it, you could like empower that aspect enough that it wouldn't matter if it wasn't available all the time. But I also like the idea of hybrid play if they, actually give you something that'll kind of let you still play both, because I think that's fun, but you probably wouldn't be a primary healer or primary DPSer in that kind of regard.
Probably not. Yeah.
You wouldn't go for the supportive other legend as much. You might go for this with assassin stance or herald or something, or whatever. Really, it might actually enable you to be really more aggressive rather than having to go for as support on the side if you're playing PvP, I guess, or World v World, I guess, because you've got some of those.
Wait, there's a 2,000 range.
That's a lot of damage.
Wait, how much?
It's a 2,000 range spear that.
long distance, very high damage multiplier, a little bit of torment in there, just super focused on maximizing the damage. How
much energy was it?
Lifting himself with the cast
20.
time. Revenant only has a little bit of a cast time, and then
there's a cast
The animation for that is awesome.
The target and do a lot of damage.
Was he moving when he cast? He was moving. He was cast it quite far.
Yeah,
wasn't he?
it said a stationary kind of turret Archimedes thing, and then he moved away
which
from
this
it.
is again going to be more of that supporty, ally supporty.
That's a minus 10
supporty,
energy.
That's not a good thing. But let's come
It's a
over
real
here
thing, go
to
with it. Yeah.
some of these golems here that are a little bit lower on health. So what's going to happen with the Urn of St. Victor? Let's just hover the tooltip for a second here. See all the things that are going on. So the first thing that's going to happen is while you're channeling the Urn, which is upkeep skill, minus 10 upkeep, this is going to start dealing damage to yourself, but you also see that allies nearby are being healed. So while you're in kind of this upkeep, it's not really a stance, but upkeep mode, the Revenant will not be able to take incoming healing either. So you're creating this really kind of dangerous, high risk, high reward type of gameplay where as long as you channel this, you're going to be kind of more susceptible to damage. You do get a little bit of damage reduction in there for both
no one's going to
power
use
and
that in
condition damage. So you'll be a little bit more tanky, but not be able to sustain yourself at all. And then this is going to continuously pulse heal toward allies, and then as you see here on the final,
that's a bit like the Druid elite, which
you can
is
recast
also
this
not
ability
great.
to then have a more final burst of
I used it in
healing and some
PvP the other day,
wounds
it's
that's going
horrid.
to scale based off how low your health is. So this is something that you can kind of, if you're already low, you can just pop it when you're low
But
health.
it's a
and then
1
fire it
second
off
cast
immediately.
though. That's a
Get the full
long
value of the
cast to
skill,
wait
otherwise
that
you're gonna
long
have to
before you
sit there,
die.
take that kind of incoming damage, incoming pressure to really get your health as low as it possibly can to get the maximum.
If that was
healing and
instant
maximum
activation, it might be
wounds there.
better.
We saw regen, resistance, and
I do actually find the
lot of good
idea
power coming
of
from
something that like
that's
sinks
elite
your
skill.
health as a healer, but then when you detonate it, if you
And so
detonate it at
that's
exactly the
kind
right
of the
time, does a
high-level view of the
massive
alliance
potency
stance.
heal on
So
everyone. Like that
when it comes to more,
concept is
like,
really neat
realistic
to me,
Yeah.
but whether or
gameplay,
not
you see,
like
if I use
timing that with its
Selfless Spirit
duration
on,
and with other
the
incoming
what's
damage,
inside
especially in
things,
raids and
I'm
stuff,
kind of in this
like
position where,
will
alright,
you
I
just
still
die
look like
before you can
Yeah.
do the big heal? I don't know.
I mean, that
I
in
would
raids
say
is
that
good.
for all of this, I love the design of the push and pull of everything. I just don't know how it's actually going to feel when you play with it. You know?
It's
I
weird,
mentioned this
yeah.
before some areas, but I'm thinking these needed to be like 2 separate legends. I can't see this being like
I think so.
executed
I
well.
completely agree,
In-game.
Groove. I completely agree. This is a lot
pick and choose when you
for players.
Oh, wait, but who? This maybe brings it all together.
Okay, all right.
Maybe fire off
This
all the
F2
upper
looks very
skills,
interesting, guys.
and then without having to deal with the St. Victor side of these things, we're going to just fire off alliance tactics, and that's going to flip your whole
There
bar
you
back.
go.
So anything that's in Archimedes side is going to flip to St. Victor
Good.
and vice versa. So if you're
Okay.
already in a hybrid state of the bar, you're going to have a hybrid.
Still,
That
but
only
look at-
feels nice when they're all the
Visibility
same.
also
Yeah,
gives you
yeah.
endurance.
Because
What do you
in
mean? Oh, yeah, I know,
actual
but
game-
so this is an opportunity
obviously you're
to
going to play that way,
energy
right?
into
You're going to
endurance, and
do.
that's why
Probably
you
not.
really need to
This will be difficult to
kind of
use
min-maxing
as,
while you're playing
as
this
an
character
elite,
because,
but
again, the
I
dodge
think
mechanic
you
If
could
you're
play it
DPS,
properly.
kind of enables
If you're
some
DPS and you go
damage
bang,
or
bang,
support,
bang,
depending on which
then
one you choose. We'll get
flip,
into the traits a little bit later
then
in the
use
show.
weapon abilities,
bang,
then
yeah.
flip
We're
to
gonna see
your
a few
other
different
legend, then you
flavors of
flip
the
back. The
Vindicator dodge, similar to
F2
what
should be
Daredevil
back
does, where
off
you can
cooldown.
choose
If
based
it
off your
just
great
depends, like
master
if you switch
You wanna
legends,
go
do you
super-
switch
super
back
high
as
damage,
well?
more
Like, do they
supporty, or
switch?
something
Like,
a
that's
little
an
bit in the
interesting
middle
thing
with
to
some
think
wounds and a
about.
little bit of damage.
I think it probably stays
So
because I don't think you
have
always
the
enter in
opportunity to,
Archimedes.
depending on
That
how much
Mhm,
energy you spend
yeah.
on your skills. Maybe you want to get
Wonder if
chargedness
he's
over
gonna show us.
invocation to really maximize how much energy you have while you're swapping between legends.
Wow.
That's going to allow
You
you
could
to take
change
alliance
direction
tactics and
mid-air
kinda
while
get that
dodging.
endurance
Wait,
back while
missed
also min-maxing the gameplay style you want to get out of alliance stance.
We'll go back through, don't worry.
Because you
everyone.
also have potentially the option to run
More
more supportive
he's
style,
revealing
maybe
these little
Ventari
things,
plus
like the
alliance,
F2
and then
skill,
really focus on these
the more
Victor
I'm
side
liking
skills,
this.
and just make sure you're casting those. Don't care as
Just
much
thinking
about
of the play styles you could use for it.
Archimedes in that case, and then you're going to be really wanting.
I
to
am
take
glad
advantage
that
of
there's
alliance
just
tactics
that
to
and not
flip
like
over those
3 or
skills
4
whenever
buttons
you
above there,
feel
like
the need.
flipping Renegade and other stuff. I'm just like, I'm glad about that.
So I'll just touch on the dodge again real quick. We'll get into the kind of key details once we get back into the traits.
is a
But as you can see,
lot
this is a
of
pretty
damage.
long. This is the super
That's a
aggressive
long
offensive
dodge.
dodge that I have slotted right now. So you see it's
It
going
is
to
a
give me a
long
buff
dodge.
to outgoing damage. And outside of that, this is a much slower, more telegraphed, much longer evade frame, but also a pretty significant
Animation's interesting
amount
as well,
of
'cause it
damage
kind
here
of
at
looks
the
like you
end. And
disappear.
we've definitely seen like
Yeah, you
how
pop back
this
down.
single
Okay.
dodge plays with Mirage since we've
It's
They've
invulnerability
actually
for
been
like
in World
2
of Warcraft
seconds.
for a while now. So when we're building the Vindicator, we want to make sure that
It's a dodge,
all
really,
of these dodges feel rewarding enough to justify kind of that increased danger of not being able to dodge multiple times in a row.
I'm wondering if you're going to be able to
Obviously, we've
traverse
seen some
vertically up
defensive
stuff.
cooldowns on the Alliance stance. Shear-wise, access to that. Jalice can have
That'd be
some damage
interesting.
mitigation. So Revenant does have a lot of tools that can kind of mitigate damage outside of their dodge, and we felt that it was a really interesting place to kind of try the single dodge mechanic again and see if Revenant is something that
Yeah,
can
this is
also
definitely Doomfist.
make that work.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
Next, we're gonna move into the
You're
great
right,
sword
actually.
skills, and
I love that
kinda
it's
touched
not
on
like
it
a
little
ground
bit earlier,
target.
where this
I
is
think
very
that
much
makes
more that
it
AoE
much
cleaving,
more
power DPS
flexible in
weapon
place of like a dodge
that's going to
roll,
complement
you know?
sword pretty well if you're just looking for like a PvE damage rotation, but also just for those larger fights, maybe in World v World environment, PvP team fights, open world, looking to hit as many targets as you can, then the greatsword's going to be really a valuable choice. So nothing too crazy here on the auto attack, pretty standard greatsword auto attack. The final hit applies chill, so a little bit of staying power, a little bit of chase down.
I have targets though.
Reaper.
Moving into Mist Unleashed. This is kind of the main damage payoff of the kit. Skill 2, pretty standard damage and vulnerability.
Nice vulnerability for the
And
battle
skill 3,
scars.
Phantom's Onslaught. This is going to be another gap closer. We saw some in the Alliance stance side of things, but we also have here on the Greatsword. Dash in, probably need a target, so you actually want to hit something. You can just fire that skill off without a target and dash, similar to Rush. We cleaned up, this is actually using a slightly different animation from Rush, so it doesn't, it's a little bit less likely to fly out in random directions, which I'm sure all the Warrior players in chat can kind of, you know, grumble and complain about, because anyone who's played with Greatsword and Rush and has ended up on the wrong side of the map because their enemy was moving in a weird direction. That's going to be a little bit less of an issue here with Phantom's Onslaught.
Yeah, I feel that deep in my
That's also
soul
gonna be a
with
little bit more chill
my
and
Guardian Greatsword.
Next up, we have Imperial Guards. This is a defensive cooldown here. It's going to be a channel
Okay, so
block.
this is
And the
Ranger
kind of unique aspect
Greatsword.
of this is that you see it flips over into, I believe it's called True Strike here. This is just another damage ability, so you
overpowered
can
block
just kind
from
of double
Ranger
tap
Greatsword
this
is
to
now
get
on the
a little bit of
Revenant.
extra damage in there. That's not going to be ideal because the mechanic of Imperial Guard is that as long as you are blocking attacks, that is going to charge up the damage of True Strike. So we see what's the damage here, about 3k there, but if this golem actually uses, say, rapid fire on me, and I block a lot of incoming attacks, that's going to charge up True Strike, and we're going to see, well, I forgot to crit, so huge misplay. But the damage does increase by a pretty significant amount there.
Interesting.
And then finally, we're going to get Eternity's
Brilliant.
Requiem. This is kind of
I
a
love
big,
that skill.
I like the name
I
of
guess
this.
it's another big damaging skill. This one's a little bit more high variance. It's another thing where you're going to want to be surrounded by a large cluster of enemies, because this is going to be kind of similar to skills in the past we've seen with like Meteor Shower, Frostbow 4. There's a little bit of this on Lightning Hammer, where it's just this large cluster of spawning spells in the area around you. And so it has the similar mechanic of like damage reduction per hit, because we don't want to just, you know, get really unlucky and you got hit by, somehow you got hit by all 24 impacts, which I would be impressed. Send me the VOD. I'll give you a high five or something if you get hit by all 24 hits of this skill.
It's meant to be an AoE skill, though, if you look at the tooltip.
But again, just going to kind of add that
You gotta be
meteor
in
shower mechanic.
range with it.
And importantly, that you're going to see that when the golem uses this skill here, this is going to be a little bit more telegraphed, because it's a little bit hard to see all those impacts, right? But here, for all of the enemies, they're going to be able to see that, okay, here's all these damage radii that I need to avoid. So that's
I
the gist
really
of the
like
Greatsword kit,
the
you know, a little bit of
theme
mobility,
of
a little
that,
bit
the idea that
defense,
you're
a
tearing
lot
these little
of cleaving
holes in
AoE
the
damage,
mists
and
that are
that's
then doing
really all
that, but I
there is
also
to the
think it's
Vindicator,
just
but
kind of
it's a very
a cool
flexible
ability.
character because of the kind of dual nature of the Alliance stance. You're going to be able to potentially run a few different builds with this character, whether it's pure offense or pure support, or the kind of the in-between hybrid. There's a lot of possibilities, so it's going to be really interesting to see like what all you guys do in the beta and when you get your hands on this. And so that's the Vindicator. We'll come back to the traits later in the show, like we mentioned. We're going to get through all the super cool, exciting stuff with the skills and professional mechanics and the lore, and then we'll come back for the kind of a little bit more of the theory behind all the traits later in the show. So next we're going to move
That's a
into
good idea to do that.
Bladesworn, I believe.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely that F2 ties it all together.
Yeah.
Oh, are they doing traits at the end?
Yes,
Advances
that's
in
what
Oh,
it is.
panther
changed it.
technology have yielded a fusion of firearm and longsword. The
This
gun
looks
saber,
Very
Only a
interesting.
dedicated, highly trained warrior can handle such a volatile weapon.
AKA Blamerai.
Gunsaber attacks
AKA
can
Hollow
the
Smith.
Bladesworn's
AKA.
will,
Sorry.
allowing them to
sword.
use their meditative dragon trigger.
This is cool.
In this state of calm and concentration,
I love it.
they can load their gunsaber.
The standoff, it's just so, it's like not only just such a great moment of like dramatic
With their
tension for a
gunsaber
class,
sheath,
but it also
they wield
just, I think it could be really fun if it's like a charge thing where you like charge it up and then unleash it for higher potency. I'm not sure how they're gonna do it.
It's like, it'll be like adrenaline, I think.
You see someone
also.
dodge twice, you have to pop that.
I love that whole like just reaching back and just like. I'm hoping that animation is
We are going to get
awesome.
into the Bladesworn, but I do want to call out first that Indigo just got a text.
Yeah, my mom just texted me pictures of water bottles, so I think this is widespread.
She's watching and she just like texted Indigo a picture of, she's got water bottles lined up in front of her monitor, so we're all
That's
all
really
going into
sweet.
it.
Yeah, we're prepared.
I'm good. I brought my own.
That's the mum.
All right, so hang on, Cal's getting a drink, but then we will talk about the Bladesworn.
Time to hydrate.
Yeah,
Can we get some?
Time to hydrate.
He gets a break.
I don't think we actually have an emote for hydration in the chat, but
We should.
Well,
we should.
Now.
somebody get
Twitch
touch with
chat
the
probably
art.
knows. There's probably one I'm not thinking of. So.
No, let's get art on this. They have time.
They have time.
They don't.
That'll be a crucial addition to the Guild Wars 2 channel, a hydrate emote or a hydration
Indigo
queue
first. I'm
command.
sorry, I got excited about your text.
The expansion was delayed because we had to make an emote for the water.
Class. And our warrior fans will be happy to know that it's just as vicious as you would expect. The Bladesworn, now with the aid of their new offhand pistol, has the ability to use a really unique advanced form of technology called the Gunsaber. And the Gunsaber is this really fascinating fusion of almost like a firearm and a greatsword. And what it uses are these specially crafted amber bullets. And the amber is mined in the heart of Echowold Forest,
Oh, there's a
which
Luxon
we'll
thing.
learn about a little bit more later too. And it's a proud Kurzik tradition because the Kurziks were the best, so of
Kurzik
course they
thing.
would make something really cool. I mean, like, it's just, why not?
jade is
one of them.
But
one of
amber
the
is
things.
also a really delicate resource to handle and really dangerous to handle too. So the Bladesworn is often balancing between managing its ammo and managing its use of the gun itself and jumping back and forth, which Cal will get into a little bit more here in a moment. But that kind of interplay in the heart of the class itself is really rich with lore and those thematics of the forest. So I'm excited to hear more.
Yes, please.
All right, let's do it. This is the Bladesworn. So currently got the Gunsaber, kind of Gunsaber activated. We have a pistol, a couple of skills, not very exciting. Who cares about the pistol? We got this super cool Gunsaber. We'll definitely talk about the pistol a little bit. So we're going to start with the Gunsaber. We'll talk about the pressure mechanic changes a little bit as well.
Look at the bullets.
So first things first, the Gunsaber is kind of a little bit different from a lot of the more transformation-based kind of extra kits that we've seen in the past, stuff like Celestial Avatar, any sort of Death Shroud, or like Photon Forge, for example. These are all kind of gated behind some sort of resource. And the Gunsaber is not. It is just effectively a separate weapon. And so one of the trade-offs for this character is that while you're in combat, your weapon swap is actually going to be disabled because the understanding is that your secondary weapon is always the Gunsaber. You'll still be able to equip two weapons, obviously, and then kind of pick and choose before you engage with something. So you might want to have a rifle for some fights, you might want to have, say, greatsword for some other fights. Make sure that you're swapped into that before you actually engage combat, because that's going to get locked down. You're only going to be able to swap between your active weapon
Depends
and
how powerful
Gunsaber.
it is.
Oh no.
We'll talk about the skills in a minute here. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how adrenaline.
I mean, I kind of love that because
and
it
then we're
does
gonna
mean
talk about
that
the burst
you
skills
have
for this
to
character.
integrate it
That's a super
heavily into
exciting
your
part of this.
gameplay, right? And all the animations and things they
But
showed,
starting
so
off,
many of
we're
them
going to see that.
featured it.
So
I
one
was
thing is
wondering
here
how
we've
they were going to
renamed
do that because it
Relentless
didn't
Fire,
seem like
and
something
that's
you just
partially
every now and then
because
popped
it's a
into
little
and
bit
then
different in
popped
terms
out
how
of.
it's built. I'm hitting this golem and I'm not getting any
They did this
flow.
with Revenant,
That's
though.
one
It didn't work.
separation. It's enough of a mechanical difference that we wanted to change the name
That
to
is
kind of
interesting.
avoid confusion and kind of just more thematic to this character, which is a little bit more calculated, a little bit more almost meditative compared to something like even
Really
Core
depends
Warrior
what
or
it
just
gives you.
Berserker, which is kind of that super aggressive
Yes.
all-in bursty character. There's a lot more kind of deliberate in his decisions. So
They should
once
maybe
you
go with the
actually enter
weapon swap
combat, I'm
traits.
currently cheating and I'll get into combat.
Nice little 200
Once you
damage
get into
there.
combat, you'll see, all right, I'm starting to build flow because I have this buff that says positive flow. And we'll see some other ways to get access to this buff in
Ooh, I
higher,
like
higher
that. The
stacks.
use of language,
Obviously, there's
the
still some
flow.
warrior skills that just give you
Flow
flat
is good.
adrenaline, some traits that give you flat adrenaline. Some of these things have been modified to fit into the flow system, where some of them will actually give you increased flow rate instead of a flat adrenaline boost as they have in the past for Core Warrior or other Warrior specializations.
Flow is not adrenaline
But
now.
some of
It's
them
two
will
different things completely.
continue to give those flat values. We kind of went through the list and decided, okay, this one
It's
makes
a
sense
different
as
form
kind
of
of
it,
that,
right?
more
Same mechanic, just called something else.
built over
but
time
it's
mechanic, and then
time
some of these still need to be
rather
more
than
bursty
abilities, I
to
suppose.
either the trait line or the skill or whatever. So here you see positive flow is building up. Eventually I'm going to get to 100. This will go a little bit faster as you use some of the utility skills or the traits to give you some more flow. But once you get to, another thing to note here, this goes up to 100 because it's kind of similar with the Revenant thing. 100's a lot cooler than 30. It's about 70 higher. We did some impressive math on this one as well and confirmed that 100 is just a much more powerful number to have access to than 30. So key balance decisions being made.
We hired an accountant for that.
So once you have access to, any amount of flow here, I believe you actually need like 10, similar to burst limits on Core Warrior. Once you have enough flow, you can enter what we're calling Dragon Trigger. So once we get into Dragon Trigger here, you kind of get into this prepared stance and you're ready to draw and unleash the power of the gun saber. And so you see, it took about 5 seconds to fully charge these charges. It's going to drain every half second, it'll drain 10 and build up to that maximum of over 5 seconds of maximum damage. And this is really going to allow you, there's going to be 3 different flavors of Dragon Slash. We'll start with the most powerful one.
Did you say flavors?
I did say flavors.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
So this is that gunslinger thing we were talking about.
So I'm going to cheat real quick and give myself
it seems like depending on how long you hold it, it'll do different things.
Going to do because we love large numbers. All right, chat. What do you think? We're charging this ability for like 10 seconds.
That's a pretty long
or 5
charge
seconds,
though for the
but we
biggest
built up a lot
one.
of adrenaline.
To
All right,
not be able to do anything else.
Out of nowhere.
Maybe it's massive. Like it might
but
be
let's see how much
massive
damage
hit.
the skill is actually going to do when I guarantee crit. Remember, this is a heavy golem, so about 2600 armor. It's not an ambient creature. We're not going to do any nonsensical things there. But all right, we're going to unleash Dragon Slash Force. So that's about that actually did 25,000 damage. That's actually way too low. And I actually am on the wrong equipment set where I don't actually have any gear equipped. And
I was going to say,
that's why it was 200 damage.
Real quick, let's
suspense
get a
is
real
killing me, and then
number
it
in
went
here.
off, and I went,
Swap over to Cell Berserker.
That was
That's
still
not
24K.
With absolutely
1
nothing
second.
on.
He's got sigil of
Get
intelligence
some
on there as
better
well.
gear here real quick.
Oh, he just got a
This guy
bunch
will
of,
come back, re-equip
Oh, he just
this
gave himself all the
guy,
legendaries.
The deception of the outfit.
Put on some
I wish
traits.
I had
Achievements, actually, if you look in the bottom right hand corner, they're flowing up.
Get out of combat.
Interesting.
I don't know if I'd recommend this
Findings.
build. It's just some damage multipliers
Oh,
in
nice on
here.
there. Okay.
If we really wanted to go crazy, you'd probably equip Warrior's Cunning, but no one takes that trait. That's not realistic. It's only going to be against high health targets anyway.
I like how he
Actually,
just
the 5
insults his
signets
own
will
job.
support
Against
Warrior
their
build
own
here.
creation.
So let's just
Oh, he's
build
gonna
some
pop all the
adrenaline
6 to
real
get the
quick.
crit bonuses.
Hop in here, get into combat. I'm also going to cheat again
Yeah,
real
Signet Warrior.
fast.
I think
and
that's
give
something-
myself some offensive buffs that
Was it him or was it
some
you,
players
Lance?
might be familiar with. Because we're just going to get some quality damage numbers coming out here.
Okay, let's predict what
All right,
what
so we
numbers
got
is
some
going to
buffs.
be.
This guy has
With
25
everything?
ball, triple in there 'cause I have life
It's
cycle
at least
high.
double.
So let's hop in here.
50,
Maximum
60.
maximum
Oh, God.
charge,
Oh,
Dragon
sh-
Slash. Got all these buffs. We got like Frost Spirit in here. Assassin's
Oh,
Presence,
no.
Performance.
Oh.
That's the Bladesworn Grandmaster damage trait. We got some banners. They're around here somewhere, I'm sure. But
163,000.
let's see. All right, now let's see how much damage this skill is going to do. Does anyone have any? I can't even see the chat, so I'm just
Oh my
I
gosh,
was
talking to the
nervous.
nervous, and
I'm
one person
excited.
got pretty close.
I guess the
say
rotation for
1
Warrior
second.
just got easy.
Let's see what we get here. We're firing this off. We're going to see
347.
350,000 damage. Okay, that's
my.
actually a bit lower. There's some
What?
variance in weapons. I've seen about 450, 475.
Why would you ever use that though? Why would you ever sit
but we
that
really wanna
low?
make sure
Other than
that
for
it's,
like
you
a
know,
raid boss,
rewarding enough.
that's it though.
Raid boss,
Twitch chat
yeah.
going a little bit
Yeah,
crazy.
they just flipped.
350,000? Is that
Time to
number high?
one-shot some raid
Not
bosses.
that high.
Heavy armor
I mean, but
target,
that's just the full
372, there you
max,
go.
right?
Better weapon
So
roll.
I guess people will probably do
yeah,
the
so that's a pretty
calculations of how
impressive
many,
damage number.
actual
Competitive
abilities you can get
players,
off in a
don't worry,
rotation in
the
that
number's gonna
time and how
be
much
a
that
lot
factors
lower.
to, et cetera, et cetera.
We
But the
somehow
other
figured out
tiers
that
seem to
doing
also do something.
370,000
Or,
damage
you know,
against
to a
players
lesser
who have about
degree.
20,000 health, probably not the best idea.
Depends on which one of those people you are.
It does depend, so that's going to be a little bit different. But kind of the other important, I'll just go back to
The opener will be one button, yes.
Extraneous buffs, but
your entire
the key thing to note
rotation
here
will
is
be
that
one
this
button by the looks of
scales
it.
exponentially with the number of charges.
Doubtful. Not in PvP.
So if I
though.
fire this up very quickly after, we're going to see, okay, that only did like 2,000 damage because it was only a single charge. And it's going to build up slowly, and then once you get into kind of the latter few charges of the skill, you're going to see a much larger exponential ramp. And this is actually governed by a really nonsensical third-order polynomial equation that has some interesting coefficients, and there's some words about math.
A third-order polynomial.
Based on your charge level, it does some calculations, says, okay, here's how much damage you're supposed to do. And the end result is a large number at higher charges. Makes sense. Okay, so outside of memes, damage, high numbers, that's Dragon Slash Force. So that's the first kind of, this is the purest damage version of Dragon Slash. This does the most damage. But then we also have kind of the next two. We have Dragon Slash Boost, and we have Dragon Slash Reach. And so Boost is going to have kind of this dash attached to it. We saw this in the video. That's going to do a bit less, only 119,000 damage.
So you've almost got
the super
You've almost got two weapon swap skills.
Similarly,
oh no, wait,
damage is going to fall off. The damage is going to fall off even more for Reach, which is going to be the ranged version, and this is going to fire off a piercing projectile that can line it up, hit a bunch of targets. But the damage is significantly lower because there is, less risk into using this skill. And
Hey,
you see a couple of
it
skills
changes
here
all
that
your
are not
skills
Dragon Slashes.
as well.
And the idea
How
is that
about
you're
how
kind
about
of
a
forced
nice
into this
little
stationary
Gunblade,
gameplay, so you're very
Gunsworn thief
susceptible.
combo where the thief gives
Very
the
easy to run
Gunsworn a
away
lot of
from
invisibility
as well. So
for this.
we have Trigger Guard here, which is going to give Aegis,
Could be a thing.
mitigate an incoming attack.
That actually could be
Pretty
really
reasonable.
cool, honestly.
And then secondly, we're going to have Flicker Step. And so Flicker Step is a very, very short
Because
distance
that
teleport.
in
It's not gonna
PvP
be as
is
exciting as
not going to be a
Lightning
thing.
Flash or
Unless
anything
you've
like that.
got,
But it gives you just a
like
little
you
bit of
say,
extra
some
mobility while
stealth
you're
or
inside the
maybe
trigger.
quickness. I'm wondering
So
if
you can
quickness affects this.
Kind of chase something down and then fire
Charge.
off Dragon Slash.
Hopefully someone asked that in the
So
chat.
next we're going to talk about the Gun Saber skills. That's all the profession stuff. Really cool
This
stuff.
is,
I recommend
oof.
having equipment.
Not at all what I was
when you
expecting.
Use damaging abilities.
It's very different. I'm wondering how
It is
Warwick's
Obviously,
going
you
to
don't need
feel.
it. Like, we're still hitting for what, 25k without any equipment? That's
I'll be
pretty
2
solid.
seconds.
So moving into the Gun Saber, and one thing we're going to see with the Gun Saber is that because it is kind of this mandatory weapon, you always have to have this equipped. It's going to be a little bit flexible. It's not going to be like a hard glass cannon weapon. It's not going to be anything too specific toward anything. It is very much a power-focused weapon, as we're also going to see on the pistol. But it is going to be a little bit more flexible because we're going to have some range. We're going to see a little bit of defense, a little bit of mobility. Just starting off with the auto attack chain, we have kind of this pretty standard 3-hit combo. The only kind of extra at the end is that we're going to see the explosion skill fact on a few other Bladesworn skills as well. There's going to be traits that play off explosions for this character, so some of the damage gets moved from the actual strike into that secondary kind of explosion mechanic. Moving on into next, Blooming Fire. This one's going to be, again, more damage. Nothing too crazy. Melee range, you can move while you cast this. A little bit of extra reach as opposed to some of the skills that with similar behavior where they kind of cast in place. Moving into Artillery Slash is going to be a ranged. Nothing too crazy again. It's going to be cripple. I still have Light Specialist equipped, so you saw the immobilize there, but that's not baseline of the skill. It's just a cripple, so a little bit of chase down or a little bit more kiting potential as you kind of cripple that enemy. And then we're going to get into a little more the utility side of this kit with 4 and 5. Cyclone Trigger. This is kind of a dual mode physical attack as well, where if you cast this from range, we're going to throw a projectile at these guys. But if you're a little bit closer, you're going to get a more powerful melee attack, and
I've
that's
never
not
seen that
going
before.
to double hit. You saw this guy over here is a little bit out of range, so he gets the projectile attack. Everything else that's close is being attacked by the melee attack for just a little bit extra damage. And this is also a projectile block, so this is a good opportunity to play around, say, rapid fire is incoming.
Skills are really interesting, where it's like forgiving whether or not you're in range or not.
Yeah, and I like that,
Step,
I mean,
and this
because
is
it
mobility
is
of the
taking
kit.
that,
Pretty
like,
similar
other
mechanic
slot
to
for a
rocket
weapon,
boots on Engineer,
that
which
it
is
has
kind
that
of
bit
this
of versatility
blast
to it, where it
Yeah.
feels
In
like,
place
you know,
at
you
your
can kind
starting
of mess
location,
around with it
and
a
then
little
you're going to
bit,
dash
and
a
it'll
little bit
work
further
with what
away.
you're
So it's going
doing.
to set up the rest of your
Yeah.
kit. You can pop that off right before you get into Dragon Trigger and prepare your kind of maximum burst skill, or obviously just sets up the rest of your melee skills in the kit. Notably, you guys are going to see ammunition on all these skills. We're going to see a lot more of that once we get into the utilities as well. Ammo is a common theme for a lot of the skills on this character. And so we're going to see some more exciting ammo interactions.
He can only use these skills at the moment, or is that?
Once we get there, I won't equip that one quite yet because I don't want to spoil it. It's pretty exciting, pretty powerful cooldown. Very, very strong elite skill. So anyway, let's get into pistol.
Yeah, that was working. Oh, okay, right. I see.
Minor oversight. But pistol kit. So warrior offhands. It's kind of already this pretty saturated design space where you have so many options. You have shield, you have axe, you have sword, you have warhorn. The list goes on and on and on because warrior.
Yes. Wait, is there no burst skills at all?
So when making a new warrior offhand, we want to make sure that it has a unique space.
Dragon Trigger is kind of that burst skill.
Axe is like damage and damage.
When you're wielding an axe, the Dragon Trigger is still there.
The warrior offhand.
Yeah.
Something like shield, much more
Probably
defensive and CC.
Interesting.
Stuff like warhorn moves in that more supporty role. Mace is kind of a mixture where it's CC and damage. So the pistol kit, we're going to see a bit of damage and a little bit of mobility. So kind of finding that unique niche in between everything else that warrior's already doing in the offense slot. Starting here with Dragon's Roar, this is the big damage payoff. So we see here 6 ammo. I'm going to stop cheating cooldowns for a second here so we can see this actually has a recharge. The way this skill is going to work, it has 6 ammo, but the way the skill works is that it fires all of your ammunition every time you use it. So you cast it with 1, you cast it with 6. It's going to give you a variable amount of damage. You saw that we got 6 separate attacks because we had 6 ammo.
And is that
so
6 separate pushbacks?
DPS from the skill is going to be maximum ammo, makes sense. But you do have the opportunity to kind of press this button.
It seemed like 1. It seemed like 1.
It's going to give you a little bit of extra value for.
I think it just pushes you back, not
so there
enemies.
Might be opportunities where you just want to keep pressing
okay.
Yeah, that was the one in the animation.
As that comes up
in the video where he was like low push.
That's going to synergize really well with Gunstinger. Cool. Here's the 4 skill. This is a little bit of mobility. Pretty short dash. The 300 range here is a little bit misleading because that's more of the dash range, and you have the melee attack at the end here. So it's going to space about maybe like closer to 450 units in terms of how far away you need to be from your enemy to make sure you hit them. And so this is also going to give a little bit of vulnerability. A nice Aegis on top of that, so a little bit of setup on your dash in, make sure you don't just get completely blown up, and also set up the next damage skills from the rest of your abilities. The important note here is that it restores ammunition to your Dragon's Roar. So if we fire off Dragon's Roar, dash back in immediately, we're already back up to 3 ammo, wait a little bit, get the 4th ammo, then fire that skill off again, and that's going to be kind of like the burstiest version of the combo is spend 6, dash back in, spend 3.
Would have been cool to have pistol main hand and shield, I guess, but then that would be an engineer.
So moving into the utility skills next, this is the armament utility type, and this is never.
Do like rifle, one hand, pistol, other, just guns.
Yeah. You know, I actually don't mind that.
Every time
offhand at all.
we think about utility skills, we figure out, okay, what do we want to do for this character?
They've called it armament, a different type now.
And kind of fits that theme, fits that type. Sometimes the answer is no, just make a new skill type. Here we have armaments. There you go. And so what we're going to see, obviously, we see a lot of ammunition. We're going to see some of these skills kind of combo with each other, where you're going to be able to spend kind of ammo back to back and use up all your charges to get a little bonus effect there. Or you can just kind of space them out and really plan, be a little bit more deliberate in your decision making, and spread out the value from those ammunition skills. So starting with Combat Stimulant, here's the heal skill. Let's take some damage real quick. Get into combat so that matters.
Yeah, like you couldn't make them gadgets?
Smaller initial heal, then we're going to get this buff on us called Stim State. When this expires, it's going to heal me again. There's a big heal on the end. So a little bit harder to use. You're going to want to kind of precast this a little bit earlier, make sure you have enough time to buy that 5 seconds for that to fire off. Alternatively, you can have the opportunity to recast, because if anyone who was reading the tooltip while I was hovering on this, you see that if you cast a skill while you're already in Stim State, it's going to give you boons instead. So you have the option to kind of trade off healing for more damage. Pops this, pop it immediately. Again, I get quickness, I get vigor, I get fury. Very powerful offensive boons, and vigor on top. Dodges are always good.
How much fury you get? Jesus.
Kind of use the secondary heal of the first cast of that skill. You'll still get it from the second one, but you give up the big heal of the first cast.
So you mean you use that when you go into a fight?
You have to wait quite a while too.
Point there, if you want to maximize damage, you want to maximize sustain. If you just want to maximize sustain, you're probably going to fire this off, wait for it to go, sit around here, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, there we go, then pop it off again.
That's time to take a drink.
We could probably take a drink. We could charge Dragon Slash in that time, pretty convenient. So that's going to maximize your healing from the ammo skill there. Moving into the utility skills, we have Bulletproof Barrier. So this is kind of a, I mean, similar. We've seen like Wall Reflection in the past. This is a little bit different because it's only a projectile block. And the little bonus on top is that it's also going to be an explosion with a little bit of damage tacked on.
It's great.
So this is going to be useful in those big Wova fights, PvE. Maybe you care about projectiles every once in a while. The explosion is going to be a little bit of value for kind of upkeeping those traits that care about that. And similarly,
so it is
just,
Wall of Reflection, it just doesn't reflect.
There's probably better warrior utilities to take.
Orange.
That only care about damage. But
oh, and it's slightly curved though.
A little curved, a little glowy.
Moving on to Electric Fence. So this is another one of these skills that's kind of combo with itself, where we'll throw it out here. This is going to be a kind of cripple wall. This is something that we've seen with like Mesmer Focus, and if you actually space this properly, it will hit stationary targets. More naturally, it's going to be when someone runs through this wall.
I feel like these all would have a use for them, but they do feel kind of strange with the rest of at least the theme for me of like gun katana wielding Blamurai.
I get why they're doing this. This is for kiting. That looks like this is for pure kiting reasons.
Fighting and chasing.
Instead of having to waste
Yeah, this is the peak. Like if you want to use this in PvE or multi-world and run it like lots of on the move
next up we have
stuff,
Flow
right?
Stabilizer. So this is the first skill that we're seeing that's going to increase your flow rate. We'll see a bit more in the traits once we get there. Basically, this is just going to give you increased positive flow, which is a useful thing to have for this character because you do care about flow as you no longer get adrenaline from hitting enemies. So here, baseline, this is going to give me 2 stacks of the buff. It's also going to give a little stability, but if you already have stability, it's going to give you a bonus stack. So again, this is an option to kind of fire these off back to back. Already have stability, fire this off again, then get 3 stacks from the next one. This actually stacks up to about 25. You're probably not going to be able to cheat like me when you're on live servers. If you can, that's not a good thing.
Oh my god.
But again, ideally you're going to want to get stability from a different source, whether it's your teammate gives you stab or you maybe take balance stance, because that's going to allow you to use both charges for the maximum value, but you do have the option to kind of chain these together if you feel the need to. Finally, we're going to get into the stun break. This is the only utility skill that is not an ammo skill, just because we've seen kind of the danger of ammo stun breaks. Warrior already has one with Shake It Off as well, so we're a little bit worried about getting another ammo stun break.
Stun breaks.
And this one's not going to be ammunition, but it's still that armament. Pretty standard kind of backwards roll into plus evade frame. It's going to drop a mine there that does a little bit of damage if one of these enemies was kind enough to run over it. Unfortunately, they're all stationary golems, so that's not quite an effective plan, but pretty reasonable stun break option here. And finally, we're going to get to the elite skill, which I kind of touched foreshadowed a little bit earlier, where this skill's kind of crazy. But it's only a single line of text, so how crazy can it really be? There's only one skill fact here. It's nothing like the Armament a month ago with every moon in the game. Nothing like that. But this is a very potent line of text, and so it says reload ammo on all of your profession skills. And what does that even mean? So
does that mean the top
any warrior skill that uses the
that means the ammo skills.
Most of these armament utilities we see
including
a lot of skills
heal.
in the gun saber.
Yeah, those things.
Especially like even throw
your rifle, those
shouts.
Yeah.
So what? Every time you use those, it'll reload. Yeah.
When you use tactical reload, everything you've expended.
And that's 30 seconds. Like imagine, so you can use the heal twice.
Kind of crazy.
And then you can use the heal, you can use your stun break, but then it's like, what do you use? How often, right? But like, you can pull out a ton of burst damage and then effectively just do it again. That's a bit like continuum split in a way, in a really random way.
Because this is a pretty severe amount of effectively cooldown reduction.
Kick
to have on
a reload skill?
Kind of single instance. But this is really going to enable. We saw a bit of longer cooldowns in the gun saber kit, like
yeah, it is, and bolus, like a bunch of those.
But that is because tactical reload.
So you could just do
kind of this option to chain all these skills together, use up all my ammunition, fire off.
I mean, Warrior is like the ultimate CC machine, and now this will be the ultimate CC machine as well.
High burst opportunity. So I know, like, we're really excited to see how this skill plays. I'm personally a little bit scared to see like how much this is going to be in terms of the number.
I'm personally a little bit terrified.
But it's also going to be a really fun skill to use, I think, especially once we get into some of the ammo traits. we'll
Shake
talk
It
about
Off
a
is
little bit later.
also
because
an
that's
ammo
all we have to talk
skill.
about on the profession side for
On my
the
mark is ammo skill for Great Justice
Bladesworn,
ammo
and
skill.
we're gonna finally get into the Catalyst next.
Yay!
Okay.
I want to learn a little bit more about charging those ammo bars for your dragon shot things.
Me too,
We'll
yeah.
find out during the trade something, alright? Anyway, alright, Catalyst. This is one I'm really excited about as well.
Modern improvements.
I want to see what the Earth entity is.
They use jade tech
I'm
spheres
most
to create
interested
turtle
in it.
wells of
It might turn me around.
I would
Using their
guess turtle,
augment
but maybe they're going to
abilities
surprise us with
within range of
something.
the spheres
I think the
enhances
four
their
celestial guys
effects.
are the Salt Spade Dragon, the
With the weight
Phoenix,
of Tyria's
the Kieran,
fundamental
and the
magics
Turtle.
behind every blow from their hammers, these elementalists are a steady presence in melee
I
combat.
wasn't expecting hammer for Elementalist, but I do actually kind of love it with just all the other stuff. And the little Pokeball, the little elemental Pokeball that just summons creatures. I'm down with that.
I choose you, Phoenix.
All right, it is Catalyst time.
Woo.
Indigo, yeah. I hear it's near and dear to your heart.
It's near and dear to my heart.
So tell us about the Catalyst.
Absolutely. So for our Ellie mains out there, and I know we've got Ruby, we've got a Cal. I'm not. I'm a main.
I don't understand. How do you do it?
It's self-punishment or something.
I'm a
like
garbage mesmer.
But Ellie was my very first class that I played in Guild Wars 2 back when I started the game in college. So it is very near and dear to my heart. More importantly, Catalysts kind of go back into that theme of having a little bit of an ancient sort of history to them. They were casters from an era bygone, ancient Cantha. Similar to the Willbender, they were protectors of the nation, but not necessarily the throne directly. They were warriors, soldiers. But more importantly, the biggest part of this class is that they utilize this really advanced technology called a sphere. And in modern days in Cantha, that sphere has been a little bit upgraded into what we call a jade tech sphere or a jade sphere. And now spheres are conduits to the Elementalist immense power. And they kind of function similarly to a engineer's gyro, and that you kind of summon it and it floats around a little bit, and there's all sorts of fun aspects to do with that. But when I approached writing it, I kind of went with this sort of theme of like a traditional wizard, or so to say. They summon imagery from elements and environments from all over Tyria, and they imbue that magic into the sphere. And that, and as you channel each of the main elements, you'll see imagery of creatures that are known in Cantha. That's somewhat of an homage to the celestial beings. And I'm excited for Cal to get into this one. And this was also the first thing that I got to work on with Cal once joining the studio. And Cal's a combat design rock star, so I'm excited to pick his main brain about this a little bit more too.
Yay!
Yeah.
All right, we're hopping into the Catalyst. Notably, these are definitely not the celestial creatures. We definitely saw a lot of feedback on the Reddit. I mean, clearly we have like, and there's a Kieran, there's a Salt Spray, there's a Turtle, there's a Phoenix.
Still got all the elements.
Yes, those are the creature shapes that are the same as the celestial beings, but that wouldn't really make any sense to conjure those as like kind of elemental manifestations. So these are just more, I mean, elemental manifestations.
An homage to
that, definitely an
Yeah,
homage,
fine.
kind of a nod to.
Can you see there's an arrow in between as well?
So hopping into it,
F4 and F5.
for some reason we decided to give
F5,
elementals a
buddy.
hammer, 20 skills. We have a lot to get through here. We're going to try to speed up a
I was
little bit and
gonna
talk
say,
really, really fast.
Yeah,
Maybe
talk
not
fast. I did.
that fast, but
don't.
we'll start with the profession mechanic before we get into the hammer. Press some buttons. This is giving me access to energy. You can see the energy bar kind of charging up here above the
Oh,
F5
wow,
skill.
that's small.
Very
Guess
similar
what,
to how
everyone?
Warrior
It's
Adrenaline
a
works,
ranged
where hit
ability.
enemies get energy.
Calm
That's
down,
going
Relentless.
to enable you to deploy. I'm just going to cheat at this point. Deploy the Jade Sphere, and this is going to create essentially what is a spell area on the ground. That the primary goal here is that it's going to be. See, I'm building up
my
might. This is a fire
gosh.
field.
Is it a
If I
well?
cast it on an enemy, this is
It
actually
is.
also
I think
gonna
they
do
said
a
in the
little bit of
trailer
damage.
they kind of
They're
are.
Competitive Moses
they're
scale
not
pulse is
classified
very,
as
very
well.
low. It's actually
Utilities
0.01
might be wells.
multiplier because
That was a
the
weird line
primary
to have
value
in the
of spell
trailer.
is
Yeah.
I call it a well in the
That
trailer
That
if
was
it's not a well.
quite up to what we really needed it to be in PDE, so we put a damage pulse on there.
I do
and
love the
split it really, really
effect.
low to
I
make
think
sure
it
didn't
looks
get
really
too much of a
neat, and I
problem.
think visually, it's so cool the animation and the Phoenix in it, but it's not like wildly disruptive.
I summon the fire
to the rest of the
Jade
field.
Sphere. Swap to water. Now I have the water Jade Sphere. This one's giving me resolution.
Okay,
It's
so
a
it
water
actually
field.
changes the field.
Resolution.
Lightning
Oh.
field
There's
is
a
giving me
water
quickness, very
boy.
exciting.
Sorry, I'm just very excited
Finally,
about the
once we get into
Pokemon.
Earth, this is a poison field. There's noticeably no Earth element combo
And
field.
it
It is
lasts for
turtle.
as
Talk
long
a
as
little
your
bit
energy's
internally
still
about, okay,
there.
what
So if you
thematically
continue
makes sense. There are a
attacking,
few
it'll
options.
stay
We
up,
could
right?
Talk through Earth, talk through Dark.
Oh.
Smoke fields.
I wonder if it
I mean, I
depletes
brought it up,
faster.
and then we're like, no, bad idea. Don't give AoE stealth.
Wait, how do
That
you
got
know
shut
what
down
the
in about 5
okay,
seconds,
it's that
but
little tiny bar.
It was on the table for just a small amount of time, and then just got knocked off. No longer on the table.
Elementalist, you
Poison
wanted
Field
more
notably
abilities?
is a
Here you
valuable
go.
thing to have for the kind of bruiser playstyle that we're going to see with this character. Blast finishing, and that is going to be AoE weakness.
Oh, nice.
So honestly, nothing too crazy going with the Jade Sphere. We're going to have a lot of combos in the hammer kit itself that are going to play really well.
AoE
off those
posting
combo fields. You don't
weakness?
actually need a field on
Oh, it's not a
that
well.
wall?
That's interesting. That's sad. I wanted Chronomancer runes.
Yeah, I thought they were going to be
Utilities.
wells too.
Wait for the utilities.
Gaining quickness on air,
Might be
though.
those.
Yeah, yeah, you do.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does give you
play with the
quickness on air.
utilities once we get there,
Yeah.
where using them in particular Jade Sphere areas is going to give you a little bit of.
I think
bonus
wells
effect.
would go well with this. Well,
All right, let's get through the hammer skills rapid fire. 20 skills to get through. We previewed a little bit of the kind of the melee gameplay of this character. It's also going to have kind of some mid-range elements in fire and air. We're going to see a lot more melee in water and earth, and then more of a mid-range DPS character in fire air.
Oh shit,
That's
sorry.
because when we're thinking about what is the hammer, what space does this exist
Lord.
for in the Elementalist, the very natural kind of understanding of what is a hammer. It's
How
a
do we go back to
slow-moving,
this
deliberate,
grid? There you go.
lumbering melee bruiser character, but for the Elementalist, Dagger exists in a lot of that space already, so we don't just want to stomp over Dagger and say, okay, here's Hammer. Hammer is the new melee bruiser weapon. So we kind of left a few of those elements there as kind of water and earth, and then made a lot more of the aggressive damage components of this as more of a melee or a mid-range character. And so starting off, I'm actually going to start off with skill 3 here.
That's 600.
Because this is kind of a shared mechanic across all 4 attunements. We're going to see this summons a projectile circling around the catalyst, and this is going to hit
first
enemies
skill.
that it passes through. Pretty exciting stuff.
oh, it's the swap.
More
like
of a melee
Weaver.
skill here, but
No, it's
notably
not.
this does give you access
In the trailer,
to
they
a
even
little bit of
showed
a
those
boost,
like
and it's gonna
rotating
be a
orbs
variable
being able to like
per
stack
attunement. We're gonna
multiple
see
ones.
Fire gives you
So I'm
upper damage, which makes
wondering.
sense.
If you
And even
switch
if you are
during
kind of
that,
standing in range, you're
maybe.
still going to get value at the skill because
We have a similar
some
one on
damage
each
bonus, fire
attunement.
first to my abilities, get some bonus damage there. And then we're going to have, I'm a little bit too slow there, but you see we have the flip over that recasts this circular projectile at my target. So we're really going to want to maximize the
you build them
uptime
all
of
up,
how
you
long I
don't
get this damage buff before firing off the
use
skill.
it?
But then the super cool interaction is that when I go into
What?
water and summon the water projectile, it actually refreshes the duration of
Fuck is this
all of the other
class?
projectiles.
Oh,
So
yeah,
you
that's
see
awesome.
three going
That's
That's
under
so
Earth. I have
cool.
all
That's what
4
I've
of
been
these
most
projectiles,
excited
all these are gonna
about.
be buffed.
What
It's
is
just
this?
You can
the.
refire, throw all 4 of those projectiles.
That's
at you.
awesome.
You keep
That's
swapping
big
through all your
damage payoff
attunements, you could
from
continuously
this
have
kit.
it up all the time, possibly?
Yeah, like that
So
multi-effect
you see
kind
here,
of
now going
barrier
into
almost
the
around
front,
you.
Honestly,
start
feels
with
like a profession mechanic.
each of these
That's,
circle
I mean,
projectiles will give
that,
you a little bit of damage.
imagine you have to have a perfect timing rotation in raids to get maximized DPS from that.
Get that grand finale.
That's so
is what the
neat,
skill
though.
is
I
actually
really love
called.
that.
You get
What's
a
the-
higher
what's the
damage
timing
bonus
on-
condition application there.
What's the timing on
I love how you
changing
can
all things?
redirect
Earth
them
gives
into
you
those
damage
attacks.
reduction.
That's neat.
Air gives you critical chance.
And so, like,
Water
every
gives you
second you
condy
do
damage
2
reduction, and
fire,
as we touched on,
vulnerability,
fire gives you
weakness,
access to that
and bleeding to
increased output
someone.
damage. So it's going to create some really interesting gameplay. I fired a skill I didn't want to, but that's okay. Create kind of this really interesting gameplay where you're going to be wanting to move
Wow,
through
that's
your
really cool.
attunements and fire off these abilities that we'll come back to real quick, making sure that you're casting your spells and getting these refreshes on these damage bonuses before they expire, and then culminating in the big kind of finale at the end.
I like that you can move during that spin.
And so this gives a little bit.
Pretty
One of the
cool.
goals here was also to give a little
Gosh,
more
it looks
incentive
so
to even go
cool.
into water and earth.
Yeah,
for
it
especially
really
PvE
does.
modes where just a little bit. You care a little bit
You
less
won't be
about those, you
taking
wanna
in
maximize
one
damage,
element.
but now
It
you
doesn't
want to
seem
duck
like
in
it
for
anyway.
even
And
just
then
a
you
second,
think,
cast the
and then
circular
you think about
projectile,
like
extend the rest of
Willbender,
your
and you're
damage
like,
buffs, and maximize the damage of that skill.
do you know what I
Let's
mean?
hop back into
It's just like,
the
there's
fire
this.
kit.
Willbender
And then
could
there's
have used a
Willbender.
little more.
Hammer
They
through
need
these
a little
skills.
more
A lot of,
sparkle on
a
there.
lot
A
of
little
damage
something
Maybe.
just to
burning on
feel
these skills.
special.
Nothing too out of place for the
Maybe.
hammer. Or
Like
for
I
the
look
fire
at this
attunement
when you get them
elementals,
all
that is.
circling around you, and then you also think about the fact that there's going to
Recommend
be
having a
these like
target for any
elemental
projectile
entity
skills.
creatures
Singeing
on the
strike
field,
uses
and
steel
like
burning plus
that
damage.
is a
Nothing too
distinctive
crazy.
visual
Moving to
identity for
surging
me, and it
flames
looks
is
so
a
neat
different
with
flavor
like
of that
the
skill
hammer
of-
like
of
directing or
projectile
hitting
skill. This
things.
is
Like
not gonna use the same
it just
shotgun style
so
mechanic that we
cool.
see on stuff like Fan of Fire, but the idea here
There's
is
gonna be a
that
lot
we're
of
going to target
creatures
this more mid-range game
running
with fire
about,
attunement.
or not running
This is only
about,
going to hit
mainly.
each target once. And you see there's a little bit of
all
a
Ellie
cooldown
raid
protection
next
there
week, people.
when I cheat and have no recharge. That's going to make sure this doesn't doesn't multi-hit, because then we can guarantee, okay, this is always going to do a good amount of damage.
Yeah,
when
the minute trailer, or not even a minute, it's 40 seconds, will never show Elementalist Elite Specializations properly. It just never will.
Because, I mean, we knew about how Elemental always goes.
It's interesting though.
And die and all that.
So,
all
like,
that
you
fun
might
stuff.
make a build
we do want to make sure there's
to
a few
give
more better
infinite quickness by continuously having that lightning well.
Oh, was that
right?
AoE quickness, or was it just?
Yeah, it was AoE quickness in the well.
There you go.
So, but the question is, you wouldn't really do that because you really like that skill 3 on the hammer thing.
Of an AoE damage skill. You see it.
I think it would just be depending on what your role is. Is your role DPS?
Yeah, it'd be
or is
very
it
different.
DPS quickness, like like Guardian is. If you got DPS, you emit some traits that you would not necessarily have for quickness or ability. Sorry.
From a long time ago. But if you line it up perfectly, all 3 of these hits, that's going to maximize the damage, maximize the burning. So this is going to play really well off crowd control skills, or just enemies that don't move, like these golems or bosses in PvE. And finally, we're going to have Molten End. So we saw a lot of burning on literally all their 4 skills in this kit apply burning, and so Molten End here, the final skill, is going to reward you for striking a burning enemy. It is going to give you access to Might and Fury per target struck. So that guy gave me 1. Over here, it's going to give me a little bit more longer Fury duration, more Might stacks. And again, this is a blast finisher, so playing well with Jade's Sphere, while in the Fire Attunement, it's going to give me access to Might stacks. Alternatively, it has this kind of delayed cast time, so there's the opportunity to start casting this ability, switch into water, and then if you move into that field in time, that's going to give you the area blast finisher in a water field.
I love that it looks like he's projecting it as well in the animation of the globe.
We're going to go over to the Air Attunement next, because we're going to go through damage, and then we'll come back to the kind of melee bruisery style gameplay from water and air. So
I have to say, I was a little surprised they made the Salt Spray Dragon air and then Kirin water. If anything, I thought it would be flipped because,
the
like,
way around,
yeah. Channeled kind of AoE.
Maybe because he flies.
Kind of that 100 blades style rapid fire channeled big damage skill on the 2 slot. So the idea is here is that the LE spins their hammer so quickly, and then redirects their elemental energy and shoots it off.
What if you're in range?
I like how he's smiling during this, because he's like, I'm hoping that the people are happy with that explanation.
Moving into Windstorm, this is something that we saw in the video where people were worried about going off cliffs. Well, just pay attention to the surroundings. It's probably not that big a deal. But the idea here is here's the kind of the disengage, knockdown on there as well. But this is a little bit of
very
long
good.
Distance knockdown and disengage.
Very good, very strong PvP ability. Very good, and the stun as well.
Here we have Shock Blast.
And it was the 4th skill, so it's not that long of a cooldown, right?
Projectile, you see.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Gonna pierce through enemies while it's moving. Once it lands on the ground, we're gonna have this kind of delayed explosion, and that's gonna be another stun. So some nice crowd control here in the Air Attunement kit. And again, this is kind of a delayed finisher blast. Delayed blast finisher, so you can throw this out, switch attunements, get the field you want, and get that blast finisher.
Wait.
Next up, we're going to move into water, so this is already getting into that.
Was it Earth that pulsed weakness with the circle thing?
Auto attack
with the tail.
Nothing too crazy.
So.
Chill on the third hit.
You have to combo field into it to apply.
No, I'm talking about the ball that goes around.
Oh.
More chill. This is 3 seconds on a 6-second cooldown.
Yeah, that would be pretty nice with Apothecary.
But the caveat here is you have to hit all 4 of these hits against the same target.
Or Aristocrat.
So rewarding you for either.
Did you say you have to blast finish your group to do the things?
A little bit of damage on there as well. Some potentially high chill uptime if you maximize that spacing. Skipped over Icy Coil because we already talked about that one. Next up we have Crashing Font. So here's some mobility. You can use this to go in. You can use it to kind of reposition and go out if you need to. Ideally, you're going to go in because it's going to reward you for.
Juggernaut went to 3K on the Black Lightning trade.
It's going to heal per target. So hop in there. This is also a weak finisher.
Nice little heal.
In the water
it's the best legendary.
Healing on top. And just a pretty big heal if you do hit all 5 targets. That's
so
also going
good.
to set up the final skill of this kit, Cleansing Typhoon.
Might make it.
This is going to be a similar kind of PvE AoE hammer swing that gives you access, or it's going to cleanse a condition per target struck. So again, maximize your targets, maximize the value of these skills.
Poof.
Moving into Earth, we're going to see a little bit more defense, more tankiness, more crowd control. Nothing crazy on the auto attack skill here. Stone Strike.
Surprised there's no bleed off that. Oh no, there's
second
the
up we
bleed.
have Whirling Stones. Another kind of much slower, more deliberate channel. Earth is a little bit less aggressive, so it kind of a little bit slower in how it deals its damage, but it still has a reasonable damage potential from the skill. A lot of bleeding, a lot of damage. if you really maximize all those hits. Rocky Loop again, that's the circular projectile of the Earth Attunement. Next up we have Immutable Stones. This is going to be a single shot, single attack block. This is a mechanic we've seen in a lot of skills across the game, where we block an attack and you get a reward for blocking an attack. In this case, the reward is an aura. And that aura is actually based on your active attunement. So if we just fire off a skill here real quick.
So wait, was that the same skill? Oh no, it wasn't.
Yeah, the 4 on Earth.
You're really committed to
when it blocks, gives you an aura based on your attunement.
I have to type so that to tell the golem.
So
hey,
it's either a magnetic aura most of the time, or if you swap before it blocks.
But there's a little bit of a
else.
window here, especially because the block is also channeled. I can start channeling this block, then switch to air. That's going to give me shocking aura instead. So depending on the situation, you might want to get a different aura depending on melee range shocking aura.
Yeah, that was shocking.
Is that changed? Frost aura, fire aura,
yeah, because
whatever.
it's magnetic, and then when you if you block if you block before you swap, it changes to something else.
Kind of that big crowd control, also the blast finisher of the Earth Attunement. Instead of just doing another knockdown, that's something the dagger already does. So again, trying to create a little bit more space between those two play styles. This is going to be a longer duration immobilized, and that allows us to put a little more damage, a little bit of bleeding on top of that.
Interesting.
So again, that very long wind up and a really big shockwave there, applying immobilize and bleeding. Next up, we're going to move into the utility skills. So these are augments. That's another skill type that we kind of didn't have something that we wanted to.
I mean, they did say augments, didn't they?
Made up augments. What is an augment? For the most part, these are kind of duration-based buffs, and we're going to see a few different flavors.
I was going to say, yeah, if you augment something, you like
kind of bonus
adjust or boost.
If you use these in the matching element sphere, all of these are going to have a particular element that they are kind of associated with. It's going to give you a little bonus. So we start here with smoothing water. This is just going to be a pretty basic pulse heal over time, nothing too crazy. If you use this while you're inside the water sphere, you won't actually see it on this usage because I don't have any conditions, but each of these pulses will then cleanse a condition as well, so a little bit of extra value there.
I like that they interplay. That's really nice.
Hop over to Fortified Earth, which is going to be the Earth Augment. This one is kind of where we really felt the need to give LE access to a good defensive utility skill. Obviously, we have like Mistform as a hard invul and a longer cooldown. Earth Shield's a little bit more clunky to use to get that invul longer cooldown. Fortified Earth, just a pretty standard channeled block. This is something that LE doesn't really have access to. So giving them access to this on a 30-second cooldown.
I like that the shield with
a little bit better than some of the existing options.
3-second channel block.
Here is that used inside the Earth sphere. I am going to get barrier on top. Next up, we're going to move to Invigorating Air. So here's the Stun Break, another pretty reasonable defensive cooldown because this is going to increase your endurance regeneration, which is relevant if I don't have infinite endurance.
That's also pretty good too.
Yep. So endurance regeneration, nothing crazy. We've seen it before. The bonus here is super speed, a little bit, not the most exciting, but Stun Break, defensive value. And then finally, we're going to have, not quite finally, but next up we have Shattering Ice. The idea behind Shattering Ice is that it makes all of your attacks have a splash damage component. There's an ICD on this, kind of similar to One Wolf Pack, but instead of the single target extra hit, this is going to give you a multi-target extra hit. The idea, one of the goals here is that it gives you more energy because you're hitting more targets with all these bonus strikes. Cast this inside the water sphere. All those bonus attacks are going to give you a little bit of chill there. And finally, we have Relentless Fire. So here's the Fire Augment, and this one's very straightforward, just increased outgoing damage. If you use it inside the fire sphere, it makes your attacks unblockable, so it really allows you to unleash the maximum damage potential of this character. And finally, last up, we have the elite skill, Elemental Celerity. This is effectively cooldown reduction. While you have this augment active, all of your outgoing strikes are going to reduce the cooldown of your weapon skills. Obviously, I'm cheating, I have no cooldowns anyway, but in normal gameplay, there's potentially a lot of cooldown reduction, 8-second duration, 1 second off per hit, and a 1 second interval, so up to 8 seconds of cooldown reduction for your entire weapon kit, which is, as we see here, 20 skills. That's a lot of stuff. This one is actually a kind of a universal.
Maybe not the most thrilling or exciting conceptually, but it works. And the rest of the class looks so good and is just so neat.
This is actually reminiscent
so that's all the skills. I mean,
Rebound's original
went through this
design
kind of as quickly as we possibly could because we have a lot
of what this
here.
is, Chris?
You guys are going to get your
actually ridiculous.
Beta, and you're going to be able to experiment a lot
the whole
more
thing.
And really deep dive into a lot of what is going on with these kits. But next up, we're going to cut over to something else real quick, and then we'll come back and run through the traits for all the different.
We have a break. Give us a break before we do that.
It's so
We're heading over to you taking a drink of water.
Yeah.
It's important to people.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's sick of this.
We don't
the
have
water
to
thing.
watch. It's okay.
He has taken less drinks this time around. He's probably
I would be personally like,
Just
I don't want to be known as the
Everybody
water
needs their
boy.
shot
Probably.
because I'm drinking water.
Yes,
We'll
everyone in
focus on
chat has
them.
to drink water too. So that's the overview of the skills for each of the elite specializations. Like Cal said, next week in the elite specialization beta event, you can all try them for yourselves, but we wanted to kick off this show, or I guess kick off this show for the better part of an hour. We wanted to begin with an overview of the skills and kind of giving you a look at a high level what everything was. We're going to go back to Cal now and do a deep dive starting with yes, the Vindicator. I had to peek real quick and make sure I wasn't lying to people.
They should have done some recordings of
We're
this.
going to go through
Poor
the
guy.
traits and some more gameplay theories. So if you are
poor us,
super
actually,
into
because
that
this
and
is
you
gonna
want
be
to
another
see
hour.
more of these, stick around and let's go back to Cal.
I would like to say I'm
Right,
already
back on Vindicator.
overwhelmed by
I
these
wouldn't
three
necessarily
specs.
recommend this
same.
build.
Me
Just wanted to
too.
follow it for
I
the
feel like
characters.
each of them we could.
But a lot of people complained about, and rightfully so, complained.
Oh, yeah,
first
Last
beta
one doesn't
live
have
stream when
anything
we
there.
empty trait slots, and there was just a bunch of flashing.
I feel like
flashing
with
objects
each
on
of these, I
screen
could spend an
when
entire beta period just
so
just
we're
messing
picking
with
that up
this
for
one
this one.
class.
Yeah.
Notably, we're going to talk about traits. We're not going to do like a super deep dive. I mean, we'd be here for hours. Probably don't want to do
The
that.
first
Some
three
people
were
wanna
so
go home.
simple compared to these.
I mean, eventually.
We'll save that for a later
Honestly,
date. Like,
just
we're
give
gonna
us
run through the traits for sure.
just give us
Talk
the
a little
trait
bit about
lines
what the
and
goals
let
for
us
these
do
traits
it.
are. We don't want to just talk for hours.
Sometimes
and
that
hours
might be
about individual
better.
traits too much, but we will cover everything to make sure
that
that
show.
all that information is out there.
Thanks,
So
good
starting
guy.
off with balance, let's start off the minor traits. Balance in Discord. This says, gain health and boons when swapping legends, or by using alliance tactics. So that's the F2 skill that we talked about earlier. So every time that I'm swapping legends, pretty
Good
standard
amount of
gameplay
healing.
for the Revenant. Gonna get a little bit of healing in there, and a little bit of regen. So it's a pretty solid sustain trait. And we're gonna see kind of, as we touched on earlier, this is very much a more hybrid opportunity for this character to be either that more aggressive or that
Here's
more
the
sustaining.
duality again.
So we're going to see kind of a mix of both of those things in the traits. Next up, we have Empire Divided, Grandmaster damage trait. The power is only going to be applied if you have over 50% health. When you're below that threshold, it's going to give you increased healing power, enable you to sustain back up and get back into that power bonus threshold. Next, I'm actually going to go to the Grandmaster traits because we touched on it a little bit earlier, where these are defining how the dodge works for
That's
the Vindicator.
interesting.
Currently, I have the top one equipped, Forerunner of Death. So there's actually a variable amount of endurance depending on how much, or depending on which of these
It's called
you have
Death
equipped.
Drop.
It all kind of looks the same because we just have the one bar. But no,
That's amazing. That's excellent.
If anyone does need a death drop break, by the way,
I wish that
let me
it would
know.
actually change your leap effect to doing a death drop at the end.
Go into a dip.
I see an enemy on my screen.
I like that
But this
animation.
also gives you this buff here, Forerunner of Death, which is outgoing strike damage increased. So you're really going to be able to, you're going to be wanting to maximize endurance enough so that you're able to chain this kind of off cooldown. 15-second duration on this. You want to make sure that you kind of get those chained together so you always have access to that 15-second damage bonus. I'm going to come back to the middle one because that's kind of the in-between. Over here on the bottom we have Saint of Zuhelzer, and this is going to be the more supporty kind of healing dodge
Curious
option.
about
And
how
so this one actually
effective
reduces your
the,
max endurance, which is a
healing
good thing for
build
this
for
character.
this
Now
will
you're going to
be.
have to build up 50 endurance in order to
A lot of it looks like the
kind of
lower
maximize
health
the value
you are,
or
the
to fire
better
off
you
these skills
do
again.
at supporting.
Fire off this dodge
But
again.
that won't work in
And as we see in the tool,
a lot
this is
of
going to
situations.
apply barrier, apply healing,
I
and then
feel.
also give you personally an outgoing healing bonus. So it's going to play well with some of the skills we saw in
And
the
barrier?
Victor side of things, and also very well with Antari, where
And that was
getting access to this
so this
healing
one only
bonus is
costs
gonna really
50
enable that
endurance instead of
support playstyle.
100.
More barrier.
This one also potentially just a very good option.
I like
for
the
competitive
sparkles
modes
it puts
because
everywhere.
That lower endurance cap is a little bit more easy
That
to
makes me happy
get.
inside.
A little bit
That's my
easier
official
to
breakdown of this ability.
upkeep, right? Finally, we're going to move into the middle, Imperial Impact, Vassals of the Empire.
We
This is
need
kind of
those
that more
sparkles emote in
in-between.
this channel.
We're going to see a little bit of damage
Pop
here,
it
some
off.
condition applications, some boon applications, and boon extension. So this is more, this character is not really intended to be a boon support, but as you're probably going to be playing with a boon support in your party, this is going to give a little bit of extra value to that composition in that it's going to extend
but
any of those
it gives
boons
10
in
stacks
addition
of
to
might.
giving
You could be a might
protection and
stacker with this.
Obviously, that buffs allies in range, but this will also
How
hit
long is it
enemies
for?
in range.
It's quite long
and
as well,
apply
isn't it?
a couple of conditions to them.
What was
just
the
as kind of that in between
energy as well? Yeah.
more of that mid-rangey,
sorry.
very flexible playstyle. You
Just
might
depends on how quick you
choose to
get
select
that
this trait
bar back,
before you
right?
dodge. That one's going to keep you at the baseline
So
of
this-
100 endurance.
100 endurance, okay.
Now we can come back to the adept traits, starting with Leviathan Strength. This one says F2. We should probably change the text so it says Alliance Tactics. Carl. Shout out to Carl.
Carl.
I would
so
actually
Alliance
prefer it
Strength.
to be
F2 now
F2
refreshes
in
the
all
cooldown
honesty.
of Alliance utility
Although
skills.
it could be, as long as they change
And
it to
this
the
also
keybind
increases
you
the
have.
cooldown of
That's
Alliance Tactics.
interesting. Why was it called
So the
Leviathan
value of this skill
before?
is that in those cases where you're trying to make maybe that single-sided playstyle of the Alliance stance, where I'm firing off all of my Archimedes skills, all I care about is damage. I'm just firing off my Archimedes skills, firing off
Bubbles'
my
real
Archimedes
name,
skills, firing off my
Leviathan.
Archimedes skills, and then I'm going to flip
it's
fire
possible
Alliance
that this
Tactics.
was
That's going to
not
then
these two legends before. It
refresh
was
the
some other
cooldown. That's
legend.
actually bugged on Selfless Spirit. That's cool. Didn't refresh the cooldown there, but it should refund the cooldown of all those abilities, and then obviously it's still gated by
that's why
energy
there's
cost,
no
but
art
just makes
on this
those
thing.
instantly available if you feel the need to.
That's true. Interesting.
If not, you may choose to go for next Amnesty of Xingje. And so a lot of these trait names actually have a lot of lore tie-ins that are way over my head, so that's cool. I can't talk too much about those, but I know we did a lot of research about, maybe Indigo wants to talk about some of these things. This was totally not planned, so I'm just flipping the script.
Indigo's like, I'm not
doing it
prepared.
live. What's going on here?
CMC's
Maybe we'll
taking
talk a little bit
control,
about more of the
everyone.
kind of
Fuck it, I'm in it.
maybe a little bit separate show, or if we have time at the end, maybe.
Wow, I like.
We can come back to it. Amnesty of Xingje. Anyway, this basically says that your Legendary Alliance abilities gain additional boons. Cool. So every time I use an Archimedes skill, it's going to give Might. Every time I use a Victor skill, it's going to give Regen. Nothing too crazy, honestly, just very thematic for those characters. Adept traits don't really need to be super high
Is
power
there still
level,
that trait that says when you grant
pretty
regeneration, you,
simple,
you blind your target
characters.
or something like that?
Next up, we have
When you use your healing
Redemptor's
skill, blind your
Sermon.
target.
So this is going to struck below the health threshold. This is a mechanic we've seen in the past on a few traits. This one's going to do just
Well,
a little bit
maybe
of
the
healing, a little bit
playstyle
of
here is that if you're going for the
you really need-
I
feel the
hurt
need to get
myself
those
and
kind of
heal better while
increased
putting
defensive
sparkles on
options, I guess you
everyone,
could slot
you
that trait
just
if you
try to
wanted to.
sparkle so efficiently that
Yeah.
all
There's
your
Along
enemies
those,
get
there's
blinded,
a
can't
Reverse
hit
Curse
you,
that
so
says
it doesn't
Right.
matter
healing
if your
endurance
health
for
is
each target
low.
affected by
right.
your dodge. And so, as we saw in the few different flavors of the dodge, for
Ah,
the
that's
Vindicator,
interesting
some of them affect
trait.
allies, some of them affect
It's very
enemies, some of them
PvP
affect,
one.
or one of them affects both.
And
so,
healing.
In case we affect both,
and
it's
everything.
going to give you endurance back per target effectively.
Trait is
whether
unique
it's
per game mode.
empowering an ally or
What's the
hitting an
difference,
enemy.
Cat?
There's
CMC?
potentially a lot of endurance, gain if you are hitting the maximum number of targets. And the common theme we're going to see here in the Master Tier trait slot is these are all going to be endurance gain. We talked about this earlier. Endurance very important for this character. So moving on to some name I can't pronounce. Indigo, can you help me out here?
Which one?
This trait right.
Oh my goodness. We just went over this the other day.
Oh.
We're locking in the pronunciation
We're
here.
locking
This
in
is,
pronunciations on the spot. Live.
Wait, what is? I can't see.
Live
What-
story breaking.
Spell it. can't see it.
Angsians.
A-N-G-S-I.
It's Angsians.
Y-A-N.
Yeah, I'm done.
Apostrophe S.
Science. If you're
Someone's
American,
trust
I'm science.
Theme
If you're
of-
English, I'm
that's just a
Sians.
huge disaster.
Are we blaming Carl for this too?
Carl.
I mean, it's probably my fault here that I am not well versed enough in the lore to know this character. But anyway, if you have the trust of this
Amazing.
individual, or hopefully it's an individual,
Could
this
be.
is going to grant you endurance in an area when you swap legends
just, like,
or
change
when
it
you
to
fire
Jeff or
off
something?
alliance tactics. So this one's a little bit more of a reliable endurance gain. This one is reliant on being around enemies, being around allies. This one's just going to be value regardless.
Poor
because you're always
Ixian
gonna be
came
swapping
over
legends, you're always
to
gonna
the
be
mainland.
activating alliance
Nobody could
tactics.
pronounce their name, so
Finally,
they
we
picked up
have
Jeff.
Song of Arboreum.
It was really on everybody
This one's
else
gonna
for
be
not
increased
learning
vigor
how to
effectiveness,
pronounce it
also gonna give you
correctly.
vigor.
Look, Jeff is a very high fantasy name, okay?
Real quick, Spirit Boon is going to give you vigor when entering Archimedes,
name
and
is
Song
Jeff.
of this proc for Archimedes is going to give you endurance per hit, so more endurance, more vigor. And that's going to play really nicely with Song of Arboreum, which says increased vigor effectiveness. So this is another different source of endurance generation for this character. That's actually all of them because I already went over the Grandmaster traits, so that's exciting. So that wraps up the Vindicator. That's everything there is to know about the Vindicator.
They did?
Obviously, there's a lot more.
No, I
You
missed.
guys jump in, dive into it
I was making
in-game
a tweet.
and get your hands on it. I'm going to switch back over to the Bladesworn real quick, and someone's going to fill the dead air.
Okay.
Good to know.
I just want to point out that that's not necessarily
I'm gonna switch,
true.
and one of you is gonna
That's not
talk in the
everything to
meantime.
know about
Take
the
it away.
Vindicator because none of us know how to
Dead air.
pronounce
Fill
that
it.
guy's
Fill
name.
it.
No, actually, I even have some reading to do when I get
Yeah,
home
like
tonight.
so Indigo was just telling me on the side that this just came up in a meeting the other day and everybody was just like,
We're like, that's a really unique, beautiful name.
what if we just make it canon that it is someone's trust?
Yeah,
you
I mean,
pick
yeah.
the person.
It is somebody's trust. We do know that.
It's
Yeah.
just randomly just put this.
We'll figure it. Just took me by surprise.
you
I
pick
got
the
like
person.
I got like 7 letters in, and I was like, you know what? I need to see it. I'm done here.
I would rather not than embarrass myself trying. I'd just I'll take the blame. Maybe and it's Carl's fault.
You get used to
He's
it.
not here to defend himself. So it's,
We're gonna find out the hard way that Carl's in the building.
Carl's gonna bust down the door.
We're sorry, Carl. We love you.
We're so sorry.
All right. So what have we got now? Bladesworn?
Oh yeah, I'm back on a Bladesworn. So
Please, God, let
thanks.
us know how to pronounce everything.
Bladesworn, gun saber.
F2
I would not recommend
swaps
this build
the
to anybody. Just default loadout. We're getting
abilities
traits
back
here.
from one legend
So
to the
let's
other.
again start off with the minor traits.
Yeah.
Dragon Scale Defense. It says when you're struck while you're in Dragon Trigger, quick refresher, Dragon Trigger is the burst stance of the gun Saber. So while I am in this stance, if I get struck, I'm going to get a little bit of protection there. Another thing, it's just another
That's
case
actually
of very immobile, very susceptible, so give a little bit of prot to the character there. Then moving into the Grandmaster damage trait, Guns and Glory. This is a stacking ferocity bonus
Interesting.
every time you hit with an explosion. So we saw a lot of explosion skill facts across all the skills when we were going over those earlier. This is going to, each time you hit with one of those, it's going to stack this duration up longer and longer.
duration,
and longer.
okay.
For 3
Maintain that.
seconds.
That's duration.
A lot for one explosion.
Nothing too crazy, as usual,
Yeah,
minor
3
traits.
seconds, you want to do your best. Like,
It's good to see. Anytime there's a crazy minor trait, I just probably do like a double take and be like, why is this so complicated as a minor trait? But nothing to see here. So let's then move into the adept trait slot. And so what we're going to see some common themes in kind of these vertical trait lines. So in the adept slot, there's going to be a theme. In the master slot, there's going to be a theme. Grandmaster slot's going to have a theme. The theme of the adept trait slot is increased flow rate. We talked a little bit about flow earlier. We saw it in one of the utility skills. This is the natural flow or adrenaline gain for this character. So we really need to have some options available in the trait slots to increase that gain because you no longer gain adrenaline from hitting enemies. So starting with reverse flow, incoming healing increase. And also whenever you heal yourself, increases flow rate. So this is similar trigger to like incoming heals. Traits that care about healing yourself, where it won't trigger off like regen ticks because it would just blow out way too hard. But anytime you like use a heal skill, stuff like that, that's going to trigger this and give you.
But what
a
about
positive
like
flow
a
buff.
signet
So I have
passive?
this fire off stim state, gives me a positive flow. There you go. Next up, we have Swift as the Wind. So this is movement skills grant swiftness and then also flow rate increase. So this is going to play really well with just Warrior. Warrior has a lot of movement skills. We already see value stuff like Warrior Sprint, which cares about movement skills. And so again, just having more and more movement skills is going to give you more and more flow. So we see a little bit there on Break Step, 2 ammo there, hop out, maybe we do like Savage Leap, get some more flow, and so on and so on. Finally, we're going to have Unseen Sword, and so this one is going to grant you positive flow every time you swap weapons.
I like that.
It's also going to do kind of a small radius, that's the word I was looking for, small radius kind of AoE damage attack around you, and also the positive flow rate. So nothing too crazy, just another flavor of flow generation. Moving into the master tier slot, we're going to see rewards for using ammunition skills, and specifically the final ammunition skill of a skill. So when you're down to 1, press an ability, this is going to give you a bonus. In this case, Unshakable Mountain, Barrier. Nothing too crazy. Defense. If I want defense, I'm going to get a lot of defense because I'm going to be firing off many skills with some amount of ammo. And each time I run out of ammo, which is not possible when I have.
Just to know, I really hate things like this. I really hate things like this in the game.
There you go, a little bit of
really offensive classes and getting barrier just makes me sad.
Similarly,
I really don't like it.
Instead of
I don't like
barriers
it.
is going to
It's
give
just,
you an AoE strike That's
Defense is
gonna do
good,
burn,
but
and a little bit
sometimes,
of
man,
damage. More importantly, it's going to do burn.
hopefully it's not broken.
A little bit of damage on top of that. So just another way to kind of get more burst potential, because I think kind of potentially the most powerful, the highest upside, I think, of any of these is going to be Lush Forest here in the bottom, which says, using the final round of an ammo skill, recharges the cooldown
Might be a little
of all of
broken
your
with
equip
shout
skills.
Actually.
So this is also just super powerful
With the
because,
elite
I mean,
as
I'm not
well,
gonna
the way that
spend
is.
so much time pressing all these abilities and get
Yeah.
them, see the maximum
I
value
think
of the skill.
this
You guys
is-
will
But
see
you wouldn't use the
you'll
elite
see
with
just
it
how-
because you would just
how strong
continuously
this
cast
can
them
be.
off cooldown.
Because 1 second recharge per ammo skill that you use the last ammo slot of. So you can have a full bar of ammo skills, a lot of shouts, a lot of rifle, and potentially get a lot of cooldown reduction from that trait. And then finally, we're going to see in the Grandmaster trait slot some Dragon Slash augments, I suppose. Augment, bad word because we just use it as a skill type for the Catalyst, but modifiers to the Dragon Slash. So
It's
starting
interesting
at the top,
that they've
Immortal Dragon,
tied
this is
like the
gonna say,
draconic
heal
imagery
yourself
into
a
this,
percentage
and
of
like
outgoing damage from
knowing that the
Dragon Slash.
jade is
As we
supposedly
saw earlier,
infused
if you're hitting
with
something that does
draconic
like
magic,
400,000
but then
damage, 8%
is
of
the
This is
amber
amber,
as
though,
well?
yeah.
I know, like is
A
the amber
powerful
also? Is it
heal
a different
that
dragon?
you see on its face.
I mean, I don't know if you
Just
can
a little
say
bit more of a
anything
snap,
about
take a lot of incoming
Aurene
pressure
being also
while you're charging
crystalline,
Dragon
or
Slash,
like if they're
get a lot of
trying
that
to make
back
some
because you have
kind of
Immortal
move
Dragon slot.
towards different
Alternatively, if you just want to be super
gemstone related dragons.
I mean, it's the end of dragons. so they're just, like,
Unblockable and
screwed.
ignores
Version of
blindness.
Dragon Slash ignores blind.
Wait, what?
Little stun on there, also unblockable. This is just going to allow you to kind of
And a
unleash the most
stun.
threatening version
Half
of
a second
Dragon
stun,
Slash.
yeah.
And
Wow.
finally, here in the bottom is Daring Dragon. And so the interesting thing here
I
is that
can't believe they didn't say
we
like
see
double
it
dragon.
immediately adjusted our
Like, I
UI.
can't
We can
believe
only
that no
charge
one- they
5
didn't use
times. We
that
can still build up 100
in the
flow,
thing.
but we can only build up to 5 charges. And so what that's going to mean is we get up to 100, charge it up, maxed out, we're going to fire that off, and if we
That'll
still
be
have
the
flow left over, I'm
well,
going to
that
cheat,
won't be
so I
the
always have
PvP
flow
one
left
because the
over.
unblockable one's
So you're
pretty
going
damn
to
good.
re-enter
Yeah.
Dragon Slash, or Dragon Trigger rather, and then you can charge
Oh,
it again,
this will be
use
like
the
a
rest of their
fast
flow, so you can actually go
multi-hit.
back to back.
Yeah, that'll
with
be fun
the
to use
Dragon
anyway.
Slashes. There's also going to be a little more
Probably,
valuable in PvP, potentially, because of the kind of different scaling of the Dragon Slash build-up. We talked a little bit earlier about how it scales very steep exponentially. It's a little bit faster and then falls off a little bit harder in PvP.
PvP at World v. World are gonna be so broken for a while.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
So a little bit more upfront and a little bit more fall off at the end, but it will continually give increased damage as you charge that up. So that's all of the
Although they do have a new
Bladesworn,
balance
all of the Bladesworn traits.
band, so there you go.
And we just
Hopefully
have
not.
one more class to do here, one more profession to do here, which is the Catalyst. So I'm gonna.
Because I'm seriously like, if they didn't put that whole like, you know, bit about saying, you know, we're doing more regular balance, I'd be very, very concerned right now. Like, very concerned. Because
I have a
there's
feeling that barrier trait's gonna go down to like 400 max
hopefully
in PvP.
Yeah, because otherwise it's gonna be
It's open to everyone.
it's gonna be impacts on flipping Scrapper.
All you need to do is log into the game after the beta event starts. You will see some beta character slots available to you. Roll your
Shout
Vindicator
heals.
or your Catalyst or your Bladesworn in those slots. Your character will be level 80. Character will be geared up. You'll have a workable build and all waypoints unlocked, so you can go exploring Tyria, try out some different game modes, try some different gameplay. We've made it as easy as we possibly can.
I mean, she's not kidding. You don't have to download anything extra. Like, this is one of the only, I don't know, betas that I've seen in an MMO that's just like implemented into the game seamlessly, you know?
Yeah.
All right, so
it was
we're
just
now
a,
going
it was just a random flash into
All right,
cat.
so
So
that is
what?
how the
Blame
beta
everyone.
event starts next Tuesday, the 21st. Back to you, Cal.
Thanks. So we're back here with the Catalyst.
The
traits.
art.
Something I forgot to mention on Vindicator.
They just
we'll
haven't
also
got
do
it.
on the Catalyst.
missing.
This is not final art for the trait line, or you know, it's maybe Catalyst is just a little bit more abstract.
Art is
in
last.
Concept, so it's
Art is
really,
always
No,
last.
it's just not going to be the
It's
final
always-
art.
it's
We
always-
didn't quite get those in for the beta event, but we got some nice colors in there. So that's
Turns out we're still working on this game. It's not done.
that's one of the values of running beta events, right? Like everything doesn't quite need to be fully ready to go because we still have a lot of time.
What's with the lightning bolts on these things?
And
What,
so
between
let's
traits?
just dive into the traits real quick. A couple things we're going to see. Let's just start
What
out
do you
with the
mean
minor
the trait?
trait, like we've been doing. This trait is called Elemental Empowerment, and also gives you a buff called Elemental
Celestial.
Empowerment. So it's pretty sensible, I think. Good naming conventions. And the idea here is that as long as you're in combat, this is going to be giving you.
I like it.
Hello.
I like it. I like it. I like it.
One moment.
I'm really looking
30%
forward.
With all of my cheating.
Oh, wait. 3% on stacks is 3 stacks. So 10 stacks is only it's not max 30%, it's max 10%.
Anyway, let's get back in here and get in combat, and there we go, we have Elemental Empowerment. So what is this buff? This buff says, let's move this on the screen. Okay, I was actually in a decent position anyway. Elemental Empowerment, this gives you percentage bonus to all of your stats. So this is not any sort of flat value. This is going to look at what are my stats, and then give you a percentage bonus on top of that. We're going to see more ways to get access to this buff, and some additional payoffs in some of the later traits.
Right, so
but
it just
this is
gives
like, if I
you
build Berserker,
50% to
I'm
all
gonna
your
get more power,
stats
more precision, more
permanently.
ferocity.
I think you gain this somewhere else too, though, because there's only from this trait you could only get 3%.
It's going to scale off of your stats.
Yeah, there you go.
So next up, Elemental Epitome. This is kind of the first touch into rewarding combos, and this is something we wanted to do for this character because we knew that the Jade Sphere is going to create these combo fields. We're going to put a lot of combo fields on the hammer kit.
Like
Ellie already has a
Tempest,
lot of
isn't
combos
it?
as well, whether it's through arcane skills or their other weapons or evasive arcana, all these things. So getting in a combo payoff is kind of a cool mechanic thematic to this character, and the payoff here is that you get an aura.
Thank you.
Combo kills boots.
Oh my god, yes.
So
Per
happy.
attunement cooldown, I can get Magnetic Aura and Earth, hop into
It's
air,
beautiful,
combo again,
guys.
get Shocking Aura, hop into water, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And also, every time I gain an aura, I'm going to get a
One of
stack
the reasons why they
elemental empowerment.
changed the combo
So
fields,
this is notable that it's when I gain an aura and not when I apply an aura.
They should
because
change the colours
This is
of
going
the
to play really
things
well with
as well.
Tempest, a nice little flavor
When they're
combo
all the
between elements
same
and elite specs. If
colour.
someone else grants me an aura, I still get the elemental empowerment here. We're going to see that interaction a little bit more on some of the other aura traits once we dive into those.
Once per attunement per interval.
And so let's just start off with one of them, hardened auras. We're going to see a lot of aura-related traits across the top of the trait line here. We're going to see a lot of elemental empowerment traits across the middle, and we're going to see some more boon focus, not quite boon support, but more sphere, Jade Sphere focused
Tanky.
traits along the bottom. And so starting off with hardened auras, every time I gain an aura, it's going to give me a stacking bonus, or a stacking buff for called hardened auras.
Yay, a tank.
So we'll just demo this super quick, don't need to go
Yeah,
too far in there, but see, I get hardened auras, and
Weaver
every time you
wasn't
combo,
tanky at all.
it's going to
I'm
then
literally, I'm
this is
like,
again, solid
they were,
lethal tempo
yeah,
back
I'm
on
literally
the
like,
Will
yeah, literally the last two
where
elite
every time you get
specializations
this
can be
trigger, it's gonna
really
refresh
difficult to
creation.
kill
So as long as
anyway.
you continue getting auras, whether it's from the trait,
It's just the
that we
Ellie.
just talked about, elemental epitome, or from the rest of your kit, or from your allies, this is going to allow you to kind of maximize that damage reduction up to 10%. Pretty decent for the adept trait slot. I'm going to go through all the aura traits first, so switching up my plan a little bit here. Empowering auras is going to be the aura trait of the master tier, which is similar mechanic. Every time I get an aura, I get a stack of this buff. This gives me outgoing damage, power damage, and condition damage, so potentially up to 10% per 10% overall for each of those
So I
damage
guess it's
types
just going
if
off
I'm
of auras,
maintaining
but
my aura stacks.
I'm never that excited by just
Finally, the
percent boost
Grandmaster is going to be
things.
a bit more exciting. This is gain stability when you
Yeah,
get
it's
an aura.
definitely
So
more
probably most super
engaging when
valuable for
they
PvP
actually
players
have some
in
sort of
competitive
unique
mode,
property
since they have
or
access to
thing
a
that
lot
you
of
can kind
auras,
of work
there's, like,
with.
potentially a lot of
Exactly.
stability.
Gain
access.
Stab
3
on aura
seconds?
for
If
3
you're
Stab on
outside
aura
of
is
the
insane.
Elemental
It's
Come on,
pretty
man.
good.
Epitome,
You
That's
already have
ridiculous.
prod on aura. Stab on aura is
and
gonna
that's
make it a
gonna
little
give
bit
you a little
crazier.
That's
more
not
of that
pretty
These are the
good,
Grandmasters I
melee
like.
playstyle
One
that,
simple
will
thing
be
that's
enabled by
so
the more
strong
stability.
Yeah.
changes
Next up, we're going to
everything.
go into the elemental empowerment traits. So there's going to be a few different ways to stack up elemental empowerment. Because we
That's
saw
really
here,
s-
max stacks up to 10 times.
It's all about combo
10% on
fields, though,
stats,
this
pretty
class.
powerful as long as you get up
This
there.
elite spec.
Vicious empowerment, the first one here. Every time you disable a foe or immobilize a foe, it's going to give you a little bit of might and a little bit of empowerment. So this one's going to play pretty nicely with actually arcane power is an interesting, potentially interesting trait slot. If you take arcane power and you take the arcane trait, because you can share Elemental Surge and then
Immobilize.
apply. All of those things are actually sourced from the Elementalist. That Immobilize is going to give you a bunch of stacks of this, really cap you out in a very short
Oh,
Yeah,
burst.
thanks,
cute.
CMC. Cheers, mate.
So potentially an option.
Giving
for
everyone
arcane
these
power that's
ideas
a
for
little
next
more
week. Bastard.
Moving into Master Tier, we have Evasive Empowerment. So this is every time you
That's
evade
good,
an
it's not
attack,
great.
you will get some amount of this empowerment buff, and you also get Vigor. So that'll just kind of keep the train going. Dodge attacks well,
Vigor's
get Vigor,
nice on the
get
air,
Elemental Empowerment, get more stats, everyone's happy.
Hammer.
And finally, in the Grandmaster slot, we're going to see the kind of payoff for hitting all of these empowerment stacks. If you are at max stacks, you will have double effectiveness. So instead of 1% per stack, you're going to get 2% per stack. At 10 stacks,
Okay.
you get 20% to all of your stats, which is actually a pretty
But
exorbitant
isn't that
amount.
just 10%
And
extra now?
so to kind of counter that, it's going to be a little
20%
hard to
extra,
maintain. At
No,
those
but
high
You already
range
had
for a long amount of
10%.
time,
Now it's
gonna
just
create kind of that
20%.
burst
So it's an
window
extra
where you get super
10%.
tanky or
This
super offensive.
this entire
Really
Grandmasters just to give
unleash the
10%
maximum
extra.
potential of the
Ridiculous.
character.
That's a
Finally,
lot
we're gonna get into
of
kind
stat.
of
It'd be interesting if it had
Jade
increased
Sphere
duration as well.
type
I
traits in the
mean,
bottom
yeah,
right here with
it'd be interesting if it was
energy as
interesting.
elements. So every time you swap
It's just
attunements
straight
while you're in
stats,
combat,
though,
you're going to get
yeah.
a little bit of energy.
I
It's also going to
know.
give you fury. So this actually fills an old gap.
Boots, that was
when we
brutal.
when we changed
Yeah,
the
like if it
Fury
was
Lock and
actually
Phallus,
interesting,
we
then
got
it
Fury
would
Lock,
be interesting, correct?
Attune swap. Now the
I know what
Phallus
he's
also
saying.
has
I think
access
he's
to that
saying,
if
like,
so
you-
choose, while also giving some
Gain
on
energy
top.
and fury. Wow.
Moving on, we have
Because Guild Wars 2
spectacular
is a lot of
spheres.
like
This is
if you
whenever
do
deploy
X,
your
Y,
Jade
Z,
sphere, it's gonna
you
just do a
get you
point blank
do
AoE
X, Y, Z.
boon application in
Whereas
that
with that,
main
it's just
area.
like
The boons are
I
going to be a
guess
little
if
bit
you
less
get this,
powerful
you
than
get
the
that. I
pulsing boon of
suppose.
the field itself.
Bit
You'll see
boring.
might, fury, vigor, or resistance.
Not
Depending
bad
on what
boons,
attunement you're in,
though.
you're going to give a little bit of initial impact
Jade
to the
Sphere grants
deploy of the Jade
very
Sphere.
nice. It's can be
And finally, we
supportive,
have
yeah.
Sphere Specialist.
So in lightning, it's
exercise. This is
quickness
you really wanna
and
lean
fury.
potentially-
Pretty
especially
good.
quickness, I think,
Remember
is the most
that
valuable
goes
thing
to
they
you
can
as
do.
well,
With
yeah.
the Jade Sphere, Sphere Specialist, boons applied by
I
your
like a
sphere
lot of
increased
these traits,
duration,
actually.
50%
Mhm.
very
Yeah,
significant number there.
online the
Obviously,
boon
some of the
line, I
durations
like
are
it.
a bit on the
There
lower
isn't
side,
many
but look
like
at
ones
this
where you're
one,
like,
2.5
like
seconds,
immediately, other
per
than
tick, so you can be able to
boots.
stack that up pretty high over the course of the Jade Sphere deploy.
I know what you mean,
The
though.
problem for me is that the
Middle trade
top
here
two
with
lines seem to be
Empowerment,
very concentrated
just
on
to get
stacking
more
this
damage
elemental
support if you
power,
really want it. It doesn't really
and
have a lot
all
of
that
pure
does
boon
is
support, but a lot of quickness
maximum
because it's
increase
Sphere
your damage by
Specialist. That's also gonna
20%,
empower the boons.
and that's all it does.
Well, not just
Well, it
damage.
depends on what you're
stats.
building.
Yeah, I mean,
Gameplay
it can
style
increase
options for
healing or it can
catalysts
increase,
there.
you know,
I
toughness.
So different
know,
things you can
it's
do.
just a little
Now,
boring
that
to me.
Potentially ranged
It's
glassy
all of it.
build
It's
or that
all
more
of it.
melee
So imagine
build,
like
maybe
going
a
up
little bit
against
boon-
like a
boon side of things.
side
A lot of
noder in
opportunity.
PvP.
Elementalist as a whole, always
Like
a very
imagine
flexible
the
class,
fight
so
longer the
powerful,
fight goes,
power and
the better they are, and
that's all
then
the
like
traits.
you're just
We
never
kinda
gonna
speed ran
versus
through
go
all of them. I don't know
versus
if anyone
them.
has the splits
So
in
they'll be
mind,
like the
so those-
perfect person to go on a
we'll
side
run
cap.
this again
Also, they'd be the perfect
next
person to
week
just
and
be
try
in
to
a
build a
supportive
time.
role as well.
I'll
Because the longer the
definitely-
fight goes, the more
That's not
empowered
that,
they
but,
get.
that's
And
that's
it's
the
just-
gist of the catalyst, and that actually covers all the elite specs. So we'll throw it back to Ruby and Indigo for the wrap-up.
Peanut gallery.
Peanut gallery,
I'm looking
right?
forward to our discussion momentarily.
On this particular stream.
Yeah.
That was awesome. You did good work.
Views correct.
Thank you
Traits
all
are a little
for
boring,
hanging out
but the
with
rest
us
of the
and
spec
for hearing
is
about
does
the
look
next Elite
fantastic.
specializations.
Exactly, yeah.
I have
Absolutely.
a few things for you
There's enough
before
going
we
on with it
go.
that it doesn't feel like-
First, thank you both for joining.
The rest of the
Join us
class looks
next
very,
week.
very
I'm
cool.
going to be
I think it just
visiting
kind of
the
enhances
Prime
basically what the
Gaming's
class already
Prime
brings to the
Channel's
table, which to be
Fight
fair
Night
is like
live
there are a
stream.
lot.
I'll
There's a
be
lot of stuff
spending
with
some
the
time with
gameplay
their
and
host
sort of
Chelsea Bites and
interactivity of it
Jackson.
that's cool.
We're going to play through the Elite Specialization beta event for a little
Crown
while.
Show.
Wait, when?
And we're going
next
to we're going to take a little tour of Guild Wars 2, and you are welcome to come hang out, meet their community, and spend some time with us. We also have a couple of giveaways to share with you. This is the last day. We are giving away this laptop. We have partnered with Dell to give this away. This is the last day to enter that giveaway. There should be a link in chat right now on where you can join. We're also giving away a copy of Path of Fire and a DX Racer Pro Racer gaming chair.
Yes.
That giveaway started today. There's the chair. You can go to the link also in chat and see how to join there. Join the beta event next Tuesday on the 21st. It starts on Tuesday. We'll have those beta character slots in there for you as soon as the event starts. We're going to make it as easy as possible for all of you to get in there and try out everything that Cal showed off today. And finally, pre-purchase of End of Dragons is ongoing. If you pre-purchase, you get the game. You also get some pretty cool things that you can use on your account now, including the Flame Serpent weapon chest, the Canthan Raptor.
Go to your favorite content creator's website and please use their link. Otherwise, I will find you.
Dragon Boat skiff skin
I
that you
will
can
get
use
you.
in the game once End of Dragons launches. So thank you all for
Launches?
joining us.
Oh,
We
launches,
will
sorry.
see you hopefully Wednesday afternoon on the
amazing.
Prime Gaming Fight Night live stream.
Wednesday.
And we'll see you in the beta event next week.
And don't forget to hydrate.
Yep. And
Hydration.
Ong Siong.
All over it.
On Sion.
Yes.
We got a pronunciation.
We got a pronunciation. It had never been pronounced in Guild Wars 1 to our knowledge before, so we just had a big round
Menzies.
table.
Okay, so what is it?
It's Ong Sion.
All right, and that's whose trust we want.
That's whose trust we want.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I thought it was Mingus.
Menzies is very